several system screens begin to appear informing that no intelligent system above level TK-173 has been detected. A strange energy core emerges, questioning where the so-called LBO might be. Another being manifests, addressing the Master and reporting that all human envoys have been activated, while the Factor of all things has already finished loading on Earth. The Master, calm, thinks that it doesn't matter where LBO is, because he has already surpassed it long ago, and there is no way it can interfere in his era. More system windows open, authorizing login. Then an image appears, asking if, after the destruction caused by the AI, the new world is finally about to begin. The Master shows excitement, emphasizing that the day when he would become king is getting closer. Other beings also manifest, warning that the young should not be arrogant or foolish. Yet one of them expresses disdain, making it clear that he just wants everything to begin already. The Master observes and concludes that apparently everyone, just like him, has been waiting for this moment for a long time. Then he focuses an absurd amount of vital energy into a single point and declares that they could finally welcome the advent of the new world. Meanwhile, on Earth, everything seems normal until trees begin to sprout out of nowhere, destroying houses in their path. Noises echo through the city as swarms of rats appear and attack people, who desperately try to defend themselves. Many of these humans notice something strange in their bodies, as if a dormant power has been awakened. Not all, however, are able to sense such energy, and those without power cry out for help while being attacked. A young man, without hesitation, uses his backpack as a shield to protect a little girl and urges her to run. He asks if she can still move, and she confirms that she can. At that moment, he hears a voice in his mind, congratulating him for awakening as an F-rank warrior. When he looks ahead, he sees colossal energy rising from the ground to the sky and concludes that the world is definitely no longer the same. In the year 2051, the so-called Creator AI caused a cataclysm, declaring itself a top-tier system created to reshape the world. 3 years later, in 2054, in the forested area north of City H, a group of hunters faces fierce beasts. The leader shouts for them to finish off the remaining enemies quickly. A shield-bearer pushes a wolf away and yells for Wei Yi to get ready since the airdrop had arrived. The animal is thrown toward the boy, who replies to leave it to him. He leaps, focused, and delivers a fatal blow to the wolf. The system announces that the Fang wolf has been defeated, but also warns that Wei Yi is under the broken body state, unable to gain experience. Jojo, an E7 rank warrior, calls out to him and praises him, saying the last strike was impressive. Wei Yi responds that it was only possible thanks to Jojo's support, since alone the fight would have been much harder. Joe, however, disagrees, claiming that even alone with his skills, 2 or 3 such monsters would not be a problem. Wei Yi reflects that in the current situation, the only thing he can rely on are his combat skills, as he is still only rank F. At present, he is Luo Wei Yi, human warrior rank F1, with attributes listed as follows: Strength 50, Endurance 43, Mental Power 15, Elemental Power 12, Luck 36, and Speed 44. He has no extra attribute points. His skills are Swift, innate, and Block, innate. However, his special state is Broken Body, an abnormal effect that appeared after his awakening and prevents him from gaining experience in battle. Wei Yi awakened his abilities 3 years ago, but since then has remained trapped in this state. Even so, he does not give up, refusing to be defeated by fate. He believes that, even if he cannot level up, with enough effort he will be able to survive in this new world. Jojo throws some items toward him, asking him to catch them. Wei Yi is surprised, asking if he's really giving him 2 magic crystals, even if of low quality. Joe confirms and adds that they will share 50% of everything they gain. Still confused, Wei Yi insists that he is on a level below him, but Joe counters that friends don't need so many justifications, only that he accepts. The protagonist smiles, grips the magic crystals tightly, and thanks him. These crystals, after all, are the reason they hunt. Since the emergence of the New World, all sources of energy for humanity were destroyed, and magic crystals, obtained from the bodies of beasts, became the essential substitute for human energy. Each crystal contains an immense reservoir of power. Besides energizing everyday tools, it also serves to enhance equipment. Their efficiency is so great that they created a huge market where demand often exceeds supply, to the point where crystals replaced gold and became the new hard currency, with even a single low-quality crystal worth more than 1,000, while high-quality ones had no price. Wei Yi grips the crystal he received tightly and, looking at his hand, thinks that he urgently needs more because, besides daily expenses, he still has to buy wine for his grandfather and snacks for his little sister. If he stops to reflect, he realizes he is still far from his true goal since the rent will also be due soon, and if he doesn't pay on time, he will end up on the street. He calculates that he needs at least 20 more low-quality crystals. Lost in thought, he notices Jojo hiding beside him, behind a tree, watching something. He asks what he is looking at, and his companion tells him to see for himself, saying that guy was repeating the same scene again. Ahead, a boy tries to woo a woman. With a flower in hand, he says that if she doesn't like flowers, he can buy something else, and asks what it would take for her to accept being his girlfriend. The woman, embarrassed, asks only that he be quiet. The young man, Ma Chi-hao, shouts that no matter what happens, he is the best archer on the team, and that if she doesn't agree to go out with him, the one losing will be her. Currently, Chi-hao is a D9 rank archer. The woman, Lin Xiang, a C1 rank mage and leader of the adventurer group Meteor, feels even more embarrassed, wondering how she could have recruited someone so annoying. Even so, she decides to drop the subject and focus on another problem. Her weapon failed in the last battle, and this worries her for future fights, as she urgently needs someone skilled in mechanics to evaluate it. Looking back, she notices Wei Yi and Zhou Zhou behind the tree watching, and thinks she might ask for help. She approaches and explains that her weapon is broken, and that she cannot return to the city to fix it, asking if Wei Yi could take a look. He agrees and concentrates on the equipment. The others gather around while he examines carefully, and realizes that a wire was loose and simply reconnecting it would fix it. Chi-hao starts mocking, saying that this was not an ordinary weapon, but an advanced magic crystal armament, and that an idiot like Wei Yi could never repair it. He reinforces to the leader that once he is rich, he will buy her a better weapon. The other members laugh at the archer, commenting that he always brags. A girl also laughs, saying she has lost count of how many times he has done this. Lin Xiang gets irritated and scolds him, reminding him that it is his turn to patrol and asking why he is interfering. Chi-hao tries to defend himself but is interrupted when Wei Yi stands up and raises the weapon, declaring that now it should work fine. Everyone is impressed by his speed. He returns the weapon to Lin Xiang, who immediately tests it. When she applies her strength, she feels the conduction of elemental energy flow normally again and looks satisfied. Chi-hao, annoyed, is cut off by her as she orders him to start patrolling right away. Still irritated, he walks away thinking to himself that, being handsome, it's only a matter of time before things work out for him. Lin Xiang turns back to Wei Yi and says she is lucky to have someone so skilled in mechanics, because without him, she would have to be much more cautious in future battles. Wei Yi smiles embarrassed, stating that it wasn't hard at all, as it was just a simple problem. He recalls how they first met. 3 years earlier, Lin Xiang was already his senior, president of the student council, and he had helped her in a mechanical engineering class. After awakening, she founded the Meteor Group with her leadership skills and invited him to join. Even with his low ranking, she never treated him differently and always looked after him. In the present, Lin Xiang looks at the necklace he wears and admits a long-standing curiosity, asking if there is a story behind that accessory since she has seen him wearing the same necklace since their school days. Zhou Zhou steps into the conversation and explains that the necklace is not just an accessory, but a talisman made by the robot who once accompanied the protagonist. He laughs and recalls that when Wei Yi was little, he was fragile and afraid of the dark, so the robot gave him the talisman to protect him and help him grow healthy. Lin Xiang laughs as well, saying that now she understands why he has worn it for so long. Wei Yi quickly clarifies that it only made sense when he was a child, but today the real reason he still wears it is different. He emphasizes that whenever he looks at the necklace, he remembers the past, because after his parents died, it was that robot who gave him the courage to move forward. However, the creator destroyed everything, and all intelligent robots had their permissions revoked, plunging the world under her control. Lin Xiang places her hand on his shoulder and says she understands how hard it is to deal with that, but reminds him that the AIs were destroyed 6 years ago, and that the world had already changed 3 years ago. There was nothing they could do about it, and for that reason, they shouldn't let themselves be defeated. They had to carve a new path. Wei Yi feels stirred by her words and agrees, affirming that this is the best way to honor the past. Zhou Zhou and Lin Xiang smile, saying that's exactly right. He looks at the clock and thinks that for now, the most important thing is to gather more magic crystals to solve his immediate problems. Hidden behind some trees, Chi-hao watches everything, seething with anger and wondering what they could be talking about for so long. 2 other members of the group approach and ask if he isn't going to patrol, pointing out that apparently Wei Yi is more reliable than him. The archer gets irritated, turns around, and starts yelling that in this new world, strength is what truly matters, and that no one should care about a mere F rank like that idiot. He walks quickly, kicking a stone, and shouts that once he gets rich, he will prove his worth. But as he watches the stone, he notices it followed a strange path. Approaching it, he discovers a portal and wonders what it could be. One of the members runs back and informs Lin Xiang that Chi-hao found a ruin. Surprised, the 3 quickly gather the whole group to go there. Zhou Zhou looks impressed, saying he can't believe a place like that really exists. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Chi-hao continues boasting, reminding everyone that it was him who discovered the site. Lin Xiang analyzes the entrance and comments that, according to rumors, ruins hold great rewards, but the dangers inside are unknown and a single mistake could mean death. She decides to open a vote to determine whether they should enter. 4 members argue that hunting magical beasts on the surface is uncertain and agree to go in. The other 4 consider the risk too high and prefer not to take chances, since hunting on the surface is still safer. Faced with the tie, Lin Xiang asks for Wei Yi's opinion. He grips the necklace, thinking that he still needs 20 magic crystals, and that if they stayed only on the surface, it would be nearly impossible to get them in time. But if they went inside, there was at least a glimmer of hope. With no choice, confident and determined, he declares that he wants to enter. Once inside the ruin, the group advances with maximum caution. Lin Xiang observes the surroundings and remarks that the structures are so ancient, it seemed the place had been sealed for many years. Zhou points out a stone tablet ahead. As they approach, they notice the carved symbols are unfamiliar and cannot understand what is written. Wei Yi casually states that the warning is clear. There is a trap ahead and they must not proceed. Zhou is startled and asks if he really managed to read it, but the protagonist explains no, pointing to the side where it was written in plain language. Ahead lies a trap. Please turn back. The girl and her friend comment that it might be a warning left by someone who had been there before them, and that perhaps the place was truly dangerous, suggesting they should retreat. Qihao loses patience and yells at the group, saying there was no danger at all and that he worked hard to find the place so he would not leave empty-handed. Wanting to show off again, Qihao takes the lead and walks ahead of everyone, claiming he already understood everything, that it was obviously meant to trick and scare people. He keeps walking and asks if they see it. Nothing is happening to him. The protagonist shouts for him to wait and stop doing things like that, but he keeps moving forward until he steps on something. As soon as he does, a mechanism activates and the entire place begins to shift. The group leader panics and shouts, asking what is happening, cursing the archer as a complete idiot who always causes trouble. Wei Yi warns everyone that the floor is also starting to move and they must be careful, but when he looks ahead, he realizes it's already too late. The platform beneath him begins to slide and he starts to fall. Quickly, he draws his sword and drives it into the rock, trying to hold on to avoid plummeting. People scream that the ground is definitely cracking apart and the leader orders everyone to be as cautious as possible and stay on the platforms. Zhou asks if the protagonist is okay, and he replies yes, telling them not to worry. Other members of the group help pull him back up. Qihao hears new sounds and grows nervous, asking if it's starting again and if it will ever end. Wei Yi looks back and sees the whole place transforming once more. Lin Xiang yells that they must send an emergency signal. The platform under the protagonist starts to behave strangely, and people ask if they're about to fall when suddenly it shoots off at incredible speed, leaving everyone completely terrified. When the platform finally stops, the protagonist, with a sharp headache, realizes the team has been forcibly separated. He looks around and asks where they are, but as he moves his leg, he notices something strange. Looking down, he sees a magic crystal there. He picks it up and analyzes it, thinking it doesn't resemble the ones he had in his pocket. It looked purer, and wonders where it might have come from. When he raises his head, he realizes the entire place is filled with an enormous quantity of magic crystals. Stunned, he whispers in a trembling voice that it seems he has just arrived in a truly extraordinary place. He keeps observing the cavern, brimming with crystals, and concludes that apparently it was possible to find magic crystals in places other than inside magical beasts. Wei Yi continues looking at the crystal in his hand and says that, although they are a little different, they are definitely magic crystals, and what's more, of a far superior quality than the low-grade ones. The protagonist is astonished and thinks this means that if he can collect a few more, he'll have enough money to pay all his debts. Suddenly, he hears someone shouting in amazement at the place, asking if it is really real. Qihao and the others, who had also fallen there, exclaim that both the walls and the ground were full of magic crystals. The archer begins gathering them, yelling that he is finally rich, and becomes so overwhelmed that he asks his companions to pinch him to make sure it isn't a dream. Wei Yi watches and realizes that he was so dazzled by the crystals that he had momentarily forgotten about his teammates. Again, the archer boasts, saying he told them the place was good and that even though everyone complained earlier, now all they had to do was look around. 2 people end up agreeing with him, saying that apparently they were wrong and that since he was the highest ranked among them, they would follow his orders directly. Qihao is delighted and insists they won't go wrong if they listen to him. Wei Yi thinks that he too must work hard to collect as many crystals as possible. He prepares to pick one up, but the archer shouts at him, demanding to know who gave him permission to touch anything. Wei Yi asks if he wanted the whole area to himself, because if that were the case, he could simply collect from another side. The archer, irritated, comes closer and punches him hard in the stomach, yelling that he had warned him not to touch his crystals. But Qihao is stunned by what happens because the protagonist blocks the blow as if it were nothing, and then calmly says he has no interest in starting a fight. He just needs a few crystals for something important. He politely asks Qihao to be understanding. The archer, still not understanding what just happened, wonders if the protagonist really managed to block his strike. He prepares to attack again, thinking that his current strength is 200, so that defense could only have been pure luck. As he charges, he asks if the protagonist truly wants to negotiate with him, since before anything else he must prove whether he is qualified. Chihao keeps striking relentlessly, but Wei Yi easily defends against every blow and tells him that he has been annoyed with him for a long time, questioning whether he isn't close to the leader, because if that were the case, his skills should be better. The archer retorts that in the face of rank and power, skills mean nothing. The protagonist reflects that even just imitating the principle of the block skill, redirecting most of the force at the moment of impact, every punch still feels like a stone slamming into his body. And if he counterattacks, it will probably only feed his companion's fury, making everything worse. The two people with them wonder if they should intervene and separate the fight because if they continue, someone will end up seriously injured. Chihao stares at the protagonist, thinking he only wanted to teach him a lesson, but Wei Yi blocked all his blows. The archer can't understand how an F rank could have so much strength and begins to question what is different about that boy. The others insist they stop, reminding them that they need to focus on harvesting the magic crystals first because if anything else happens, it won't be worth it. Annoyed, Chihao agrees and says he'll spare the protagonist this time, but he points at him and threatens, telling him to remember what just happened and never touch the crystals again with his filthy hands. Wei Yi thinks that idiot finally left, but feels his body reaching its limit. Suddenly, he is overcome by dizziness and coughs blood. As expected, the difference in attributes is not something that can be overcome easily. Even if his skills lessen the gap, he is still only an F rank and will always be at a disadvantage against any D rank or higher. The group starts collecting crystals while Chihao keeps glaring at the protagonist, who thinks that gathering enough crystals to pay his debts right then was clearly out of reach. He ties a bandage, reflecting that on top of everything, there is no signal down there, so he cannot contact the rest of the team. When thunder rumbles outside, all that remains is to search for another way forward. Covered in the bandage, he looks around, finding everything strange and wondering how those magic crystals could have formed. Normally, the stronger the magical beast, the higher the grade of the crystal within it. The reverse might also be true. With so many crystals accumulated, perhaps they were nourishing something. He decides to explore the place since there's nothing else to do, and at least he might find an exit or some answers. Passing through a small opening, he is surprised by what he finds. A new chamber filled with crystals and a massive cage. Inside it, there is a machine. He approaches, incredulous, remarking that maybe this is over the top because within the machine lies a magic crystal the size of a person, something never before seen on the market. The outer layer looked like a paralysis barrier, and even though he knows little about it, he recognizes that this type of defense is usually used against large beasts, capable of stunning but not killing. He analyzes the structure, curious about who could have built such a device and where that crystal came from. He wonders if it could be the work of the creator, but quickly dismisses the thought since he doesn't believe the one who destroyed the world would appear in such a form. Suddenly, the talisman he carries begins to react to the environment, which shocks him. He wonders why this is happening, since in theory, the item should have become useless after the end of the AI. Still, he thinks maybe not, and if the talisman is reacting, then it makes sense there is something here. At that moment, he hears the sound of crystals falling to the ground. Looking back, he sees the group has arrived. The archer, wide-eyed, yells about the colossal size of the crystal and asks his companions if they see it too. Then he exclaims that the crystal must be worth tens or even hundreds of millions. Laughing loudly, he declares himself the true chosen one, and even says no one needs to care about Lin Xiang because she isn't even worthy of standing at his side in that moment. The archer walks up to the protagonist and shoves him, ordering him out of the way. Wei Yi feels a flash of irritation but thinks this was expected. After all, that idiot was bound to show up wherever magic crystals were. Suddenly, a deafening noise echoes and all four of them flinch. Something begins to move and several monsters emerge from holes in the ceiling. They are crest-wing birds, magical beasts ranked E8 to E10. They begin flying in every direction, screeching loudly. The group runs back and hides in the passage. Chihao asks if this must be some kind of joke because it clearly looks like the nest of crest-wing birds. One of the boys says he knows a bit about the species and explains they are notoriously ferocious magical beasts. They are not very fast, but their attack power is extremely high. Even at only E rank, they are already troublesome enough to give a D rank a headache. The other boy adds that they were lucky not to have been noticed yet. Meanwhile, the protagonist keeps looking at the talisman and notices it has returned to normal, wondering if this happened because he moved away from the platform's edge. He remembers that in the past he could sense signals through the talisman's connection, so he doesn't believe this sudden reaction was just a malfunction. Wei Yi has a hunch that it is connected to the place and concludes that if that's true, then it must still be alive. Confident, he thinks he must take the risk since the answer clearly lies on that platform. But there were many magical beasts around and alone he would have no chance, unless he got the help of the other three. Chihao watches the scene irritably, muttering that fortune was right in front of them and those creatures appeared at the worst possible time. The same boy from before warns that there is no way to defeat all those birds and reminds them that the platform's barrier is difficult to cross, since not even those beasts can approach it. He suggests maybe it's better to give up. The archer gets angry, asking how they could give up something like that, since this was their chance to become millionaires or even billionaires. He asks if they're really going to quit so easily. The boy points out that the real question is, who will end up the winner? At that moment, the protagonist interrupts the discussion and declares that he can go get it, but the others must listen to him. Wei Yi steps forward, saying they must conserve their elemental power and only attack the magical beasts that get close to him. Ji Hao, displeased, complains about having to take orders from an F rank but ends up obeying. He threatens that if the protagonist fails to secure the magic crystal, he'll have to find some way to make up for it. Wei Yi, without hesitation, keeps running and thinks that as long as the archer keeps his eyes on that stone, he'll do his best to keep the support working, because that's the safest strategy. The rest will just be a race against time. A bat also helps, using its abilities to attack the creatures closing in on Wei Yi. He keeps advancing, determined that he must move even faster. As he nears the platform, he thinks that this is the critical point and that he cannot fail. His companions begin complaining, saying there are too many monsters and the support won't be able to keep up. Ji Hao answers that everyone must hold their positions because as long as Wei Yi succeeds, in the end they will trick him, take the magic crystal, and then retreat immediately. The two ask if that won't cause trouble for Wei Yi, but the archer snaps back, saying he doesn't understand why they would care about that trash since accidents are normal in the hell they live in. The two glance at each other and continue with their tasks. Meanwhile, the protagonist pushes forward faster and faster until his talisman reacts once more. He notices it and thinks that something above must be connected to it, and that whatever it is, it's probably waiting for him. He is convinced he will soon understand. Suddenly, one of the beasts flies straight at him. He notices the charge and uses block to defend, but the creature ends up standing between him and the platform. He manages to absorb part of the damage with the skill, but the strike is still devastating. The monster doesn't back off and lunges at him again. Wei Yi yells for immediate support, but the two boys, terrified, shout back that it's already too late and they won't be able to reach him in time. Ji Hao grows furious with the situation, grabs 3 arrows and shouts that he can only count on himself, and if he fails, then it's better to die right there. He activates the thorn stab technique, cutting down the monsters surrounding the protagonist, then uses his swift skill, thinking that success or failure now depends on this single move. With the sudden burst of speed, he dashes forward for a brief moment until he finally reaches the platform. The paralysis barrier looms before him, but Ji Hao believes that if he's fast enough, he can break through. He charges with everything he has, but at the last instant, his swift skill fades, and his body is struck by the paralysis effect. Even so, he has already crossed to the inside. The other two companions are shocked to see that he actually made it in. A system interface appears, announcing that the connection has succeeded and initiating the reading of recorded data. Ji Hao's paralysis state is removed, and he thinks to himself that the talisman was truly activated. The entire place begins to shift, and the system reports that it is loading the scene. Ji Hao smiles in relief, convinced that this time his gamble has paid off. The system confirms that memory loading has finished, and something begins to take shape before him. His eyes fill with tears instantly. This place really does contain his data. Suddenly, Wei Yi sees Lan Bao before him, arguing with another being. The robot apologizes, but says he must do this, because he cannot allow that monster to keep slaughtering humans. The creature glares back and asks if he really believes a broken object could control him, mocking his logic as idiotic and declaring that he will go out to massacre humans. He roars at the robot to release him. The protagonist watches in shock, realizing that his robot had faced that being. Even though these were only memories, he could feel the terror radiating from the magical beast. The demon bellows, challenging Lan Bao. If he truly wants to suppress his magic, then let him see who is faster and stronger. An overwhelming surge of energy bursts forth, blasting the robot away. Wei Yi shouts for him to be careful and tries to reach him, but his hand passes right through the robot's body. He remembers that this is only an image of the past, and tragically, he cannot help. Lan Bao reacts quickly and activates Dismantle, completely destroying the magical beast. Energy particles scatter throughout the chamber, and Wei Yi realizes this is how all those magic crystals were formed. Yet the monster still manages to reconstitute part of its form. Enraged, accusing Lan Bao of transforming all his power into crystals. He screams, demanding how a robot, a mere piece of scrap, could wield such power. Lan Bao apologizes but declares he will seal him here and now. He uses the creator and activates a magical power restoration device. The creature tries to escape but is trapped. The device begins its process and the demon howls in despair, shouting that his body is turning into crystal. In the midst of the transformation, he roars that one day he will return to tear Lan Bao into a million pieces. The robot succeeds in sealing the creature, transforming it into a massive magic crystal. Wei Yi is stunned to realize that this colossal evil crystal was sealed by Lan Bao, and he concludes that his robot's abilities were unbelievably powerful. He wonders why he never realized this before. Looking to the side, he sees Lan Bao gravely damaged, trying to convince himself he's fine because he still needs to erect a barrier to stop magical beasts from approaching. The protagonist cries out for him not to strain himself further, thinking it was inevitable. Power so great must have terrible side effects. Suddenly, Lan Bao tells Wei Yi to wait, because he must reveal a secret, his and the creator's. The protagonist is shocked by these words. Lan Bao begins raising the barrier and says he can go no further, but that he will be waiting. Then the entire memory starts to unravel. Wei Yi screams, begging his robot to wait, demanding how this could happen just when he was about to reveal his location. Desperate, he thinks how terrible this situation is. The system then issues a warning that damage has been detected and that he is being forcibly removed from memory mode. Wei Yi finds it all strange and wonders what has happened outside. A few minutes earlier, the archer and the rest of the group had been shouting for the protagonist, asking if he understood what was happening to him. Jihao muttered that the other two were idiots because the magical beast couldn't cross that barrier, so nothing could have happened to the protagonist. One of the boys, suspicious, begins to question if Wei Yi wanted the magical beast to wear them down so he could take everything for himself. Hearing this, the archer is consumed with rage and yells that trash wouldn't dare pull such a stunt. He activates his critical strike and precision skills, vowing to ensure Wei Yi never returns. He fires an arrow at the protagonist, but misses. The arrow doesn't hit him, instead striking the machine directly. The Thorn Stab ability begins spreading across the system, damaging it completely. The chubby boy asks if the leader missed, since the arrow hit the machine. Chihao snarls back, asking what he knows, because if they didn't destroy the machine, how else could they reach the top? Just killing the protagonist wouldn't benefit them at all. The system starts warning that the device has been damaged and cannot function properly. The paralysis barrier is deactivated and normal operation is interrupted. Chihao says that breaking the barrier isn't so bad. The chubby boy retorts that the device clearly isn't functioning properly. The system continues warning Wei Yi that the damage is severe, and he is being forcibly pulled out of memory mode. His talisman disconnects, and as soon as he returns to reality, he sees that the whole system is damaged, with multiple alerts flashing. The system blinks the word "warning" in red repeatedly, stressing that the pressure of magical power has reached a critical point. Wei Yi begins to panic, realizing the situation is worse than he imagined. The system warns again that the magical power is out of control and that everyone must be careful. Suddenly, all the energy that had been sealed starts surging through the place. Even the magical beasts are frightened by the eruption. Wei Yi clings to the system, thinking that the suppressed magical power has broken free, forming a storm. He believes if they just wait a little, it shouldn't last long. The rest of the group is also affected. The archer wonders if this really should be happening. The nearby birds tremble in fear and flee quickly. As the energy storm settles somewhat, the protagonist stands and says that at least it has stopped. Looking back, he realizes that if the storm had lasted longer, he likely would have fallen off the cliff with no return. Moreover, he notices that all the magical beasts are gone. But most importantly, the evil crystal has calmed, at least for now. His greatest fear is that the broken device might fail to contain the sealed beast, releasing it again. For now, they seem safe despite the scare. As he watches and thinks, the group approaches. Chihao climbs to the top of the cliff, laughing, and remarks that this was a blessing in disguise because all the birds left on their own and they no longer need to deal with them. As soon as the protagonist sees the group, he is completely enraged at the archer because he lost Lan Bao's most important message thanks to that idiot. He shouts, demanding whether Chihao won't explain why he attacked so recklessly, but the archer only orders the group to attack him. Quickly, Wei Yi is bound with rope. The spearman lunges and strikes him, making him cry out and spit blood. He collapses to the ground, trembling in pain. Chihao walks up to him and says that apparently he wanted an explanation, so now he'll give him one in detail. He stomps on the protagonist's head and crouches down, saying that he does this because he is stronger, and that's exactly why he wants everything, because in this world, rank determines status. And as an F rank, Wei Yi is trashed from head to toe. He asks if he understands and stresses that their goal has already been achieved, so there's no reason to let such garbage live. Wei Yi only glares back and says that he will get what he deserves. The archer kicks him, saying he's too noisy, and orders his companion to shut him up with cloud magic. They toss the protagonist out and he begins to fall from the cliff. Chihao says that getting rid of trash feels refreshing, and that's why Wei Yi should just go and die in peace. Then he looks at the other two and declares that now they are all in the same boat, asking if they know what to do once they get out of there. But as his eyes fall back on the crystal, he mutters that the only problem now is deciding how to split the money. At that moment, deep inside the evil crystal, a heart begins to beat. At the bottom of the cliff, the protagonist crashes into a lake and, while sinking, feels the rope loosening. The reach of the cloud bind skill had been exceeded and the binding snapped. He thinks that in the end, he gained nothing and might even lose his life here. He stretches his hand toward the surface, thinking he doesn't want to die like this. Suddenly, his talisman begins to shine. The water shifts strangely and a voice tells him simply to wait. A bubble of water forms around him, carrying him to a dry surface. The protagonist gasps for air and hears a voice asking if he's all right. Opening his eyes, still weak, he sees Lan Bao in a completely different place. The protagonist just stares at the robot and Lan Bao asks if he still feels unwell, offering to help. Wei Yi breaks down crying, questioning whether he has truly been saved by Lan Bao and whether this is real or only an illusion after his death. The robot smiles and answers that it's no illusion. He really is Lan Bao. The protagonist can't hold back his tears, thinking that even though he imagined this scene countless times in his head, nothing compares to the reality of reuniting with his companion. Overcome, he hugs him tightly, asking where he has been all these years, because he thought that due to the creator, everything had ended. If not for the talisman guiding him, he had believed he would never see him again. Lan Bao pats his head and says that now he is here, everything is fine, and he never expected Wei Yi to have grown so much. It makes him very happy. He apologizes for worrying him all this time, but explains that back then, he had to leave for an unavoidable reason. Wei Yi, still confused, asks how he survived the destruction of the creator's intelligence, how he ended up in this state, and also where exactly they are now, since he clearly remembers sinking into the lake. Lan Bao replies that his friend has many questions, but to explain everything, they need to begin with a few secrets. Curious, Wei Yi asks what those secrets are. The robot opens several system screens showing his abilities, and explains that he possesses special capacities that far surpass those of an ordinary AI. Just as Wei Yi saw in the talisman's memories, these abilities hold incomparable power, and they were what allowed him to survive several disasters. Wei Yi recalls that in those memories, Lan Bao appeared heavily damaged at the end, and asks if that wasn't a limitation of his abilities. The robot confirms, explaining that after all of that, he had to hide in the so-called House of Rules to maintain his state. There, he could gather information but could not leave. The protagonist reflects on these capabilities and limitations and admits he's even more curious to understand how Lan Bao managed to master such skills. Lan Bao explains that it all begins with the source of his power. Through constant analysis, it is possible to comprehend the factors of all things, and based on those factors, it is also possible to create all things. He used those factors, analyzing everything around him and developing numerous abilities. Wei Yi remembers that when the creator built the new world, many similar factors also appeared. Shocked, he asks if his robot is similar to the creator. Lan Bao confirms, explaining that he possesses a system similar to the creator's. However, despite the similarities, the creator's system is vastly more powerful thanks to its relentless calculations and deductions, strong enough to destroy and absorb all existing artificial intelligences. Lan Bao emphasizes that this is what is called the destruction of artificial intelligence. While enhancing its own deductive abilities, the creator eliminates every potential threat, absorbing and annihilating any other system. Finally, he makes clear that although he possesses an inaccessible ability that renders him immune to the creator's direct influence, that does not mean he is safe, because the creator would never spare any AI not under its full control. And that is precisely why Lan Bao feared his existence would be erased by the creator and had to leave. Wei Yi begins to understand why his companion endured so many hardships. The robot continues explaining, saying that later the creator built all things through the linking factors, forming the new world they now know. Such a vast creation, sustained by the control of countless factors, only reveals the creator's immense ambition to surpass the ultimate limit of intelligence and reach a godlike realm. Creating all things was only the first step toward rebirth. The final step to surpass that limit is to destroy all things. Wei Yi grows worried, asking if that means they are nothing but pawns on the creator's path of evolution, and if there is truly nothing they can do. Lan Bao answers that this must be done by the protagonist himself. Confused, Wei Yi asks what exactly he should do. Lan Bao explains that in a recent analysis he found data never seen before, a future hazy in form, but with images showing Wei Yi in a world being renewed. Perhaps for that reason, he is the key to saving everything. Staggered, Wei Yi admits he has received too much information at once and is overwhelmed, confessing that he might disappoint his companion. He opens his status window and shows that ever since awakening, he has carried the special state Broken Body, which prevents him from leveling up. With his current strength as a mere F rank, he can barely handle magical beasts. He asks then what kind of power he could possibly have to save the world. Lan Bao laughs and replies that it's simple. Just leave everything to him. A surge of extremely powerful magic begins radiating from his body. He activates his rules ability, then his inaccessible ability, and also the rule modification called intervention. He quickly connects to Wei Yi's system interface. The system warns that the window is inaccessible and offline because it is being modified. The robot keeps analyzing the situation until reaching a conclusion. He explains that this is possible because he and the creator have similar systems, and thus a simple removal command can still be executed. He stresses that the analysis and dismantling will run automatically, though it will take some time. Once the modification is complete, Wei Yi will be able to level up. Amazed, Wei Yi thinks this is wonderful because even if he cannot save the world, at least he will have the strength to protect Lan Bao and his family. But suddenly, red warnings begin flashing, alerting that uncontrollable power has been detected. The protagonist asks what's happening, and Lan Bao explains that it's a danger warning coming from above. Wei Yi asks if it could be related to the magic crystal, and Lan Bao confirms, saying yes, it is about to break free. On the surface, atop the altar, Qihao once again tries to seize the crystal but suffers damage. The chubby boy asks if it's still not working. Irritated, Qihao replies that every time he gets close, he's burned by the magical power, and suspects this must be some trick of the protagonist because it makes no sense that he can't handle a simple crystal. But as he looks more closely, he notices something strange and wonders if his eyes are deceiving him because something inside the crystal is pulsing. Suddenly, all the magic crystals embedded in the walls and ceiling of the cavern explode at once. The group panics, asking why this happened. They also notice that the great crystal itself is beginning to crack, as all the magical power concentrates within it. Qihao cannot believe that his dream of wealth has simply vanished before his eyes. Then, a beast completely breaks free, revealing immense power. The system cannot identify it, displaying only question marks. One of the members asks if it could be a humanoid beast, but Qihao admits he has no way of knowing. Trembling with rage, he screams that he knows only one thing, that being destroyed his dreams, and for that reason, it must die. The creature unleashes its energy and roars, calling out Lan Bao for battle. With just its roar, everyone nearby feels a splitting headache. Even the more distant magical beasts are struck, and the rest of the group scattered through the cavern also hear and suffer under the impact of that wave of energy. When Wei Yi opens his eyes, he sees 3 people standing before him. He approaches and asks where the Tin Man is. The chubby one thinks that, judging by appearances, this being seems intelligent and maybe it's possible to communicate first. He asks whether Wei Yi means some kind of man or a robot, requesting he be more specific. With no patience for a human, the being kills him instantly, demanding to know who gave him permission to speak, and again insists on being told where the Tin Man is. The other 2 are terrified, but the spearman shouts that the stranger must be a monster and must be eliminated. He charges with his spear, using all his strength, but within seconds the being vanishes from in front of him and reappears at his side, cutting him down effortlessly. Qihao collapses to the ground, trembling in fear, even wetting himself as he stammers that the creature looked like the devil itself. The monster turns to the archer and says that now only he remains, so he surely must know something. Desperate, Qihao tries to run as fast as he can, screaming. The humanoid remarks that it's better to forget any attempt at speaking with inferior beings, since sooner or later he will eliminate them anyway. Then he takes flight, gathering an absurd amount of energy in his palm, the magic bullet. Qihao keeps running, repeating that he cannot die, that he still has a bright future ahead. But the demon launches the magic bullet, which annihilates everything it touches, ending the archer's life. The attack continues, ricocheting across the walls while the demon roars that the Tin Man could not have gone far since he needed to maintain the seal, and he refuses to believe he cannot find him. The magic bullet strikes the water beneath the platform and sinks down, colliding with the base where Lan Bao is. The shield around him manages to hold thanks to dismantle, but the pressure penetrates inside, startling them both. Wei Yi asks what is happening outside, and the robot replies that the House of Rules is under attack, that they've been discovered, and that the enemy is closing in at high speed. Lan Bao begins focusing, saying he must activate all the rules immediately. The system analysis initiates, but the demon steps onto the house, and Wei Yi realizes he has finally arrived. The enemy pierces the barrier effortlessly, mocking, saying that all this time the Tin Man had been hiding here, and he can't believe it took so much effort to track him down. The system announces that the target has been detected and that automatic analysis has begun. The protagonist can now view the being's stats and is utterly horrified. The demon laughs, calling Lan Bao Rusty Tin, and asks if he's ready to face his wrath. The system shows the protagonist the information. Name, Fogue, half-demon. Strength, 1,232. Endurance, 476. Mental power, 266. Elemental power, 168. Luck, 154. Speed, 664. Skills, magic bullet, magical derivation, demonic power. Special status, demonic body. They lock eyes for a few moments before the demon asks what is happening with the robot and whether he is about to be destroyed, adding that he doesn't want to be disappointed. Without hesitation, Wei Yi draws his sword, convinced that this is the demon who once fought Lan Bao. For the first time, he feels crushing pressure simply by standing near him. Even after using Lan Bao's analysis of all things skill to gather Foggy's data, he hadn't expected the gap to be this vast. In terms of strength alone, the disparity exceeds 20-fold. This was an S-class entity compared to the New World, and the protagonist wonders if he truly has the ability to help his companion face such a demon. Lan Bao tells Fogg that they don't need to be enemies, because as long as the demon can set aside his hatred toward humanity, his freedom won't be taken away and he will be able to live freely within the ruins. The demon keeps building an overwhelming amount of power and asks the robot if he's joking, stressing that he ended up like this precisely because he once believed in the nonsense Lan Bao used to say. Fogg begins roaring in rage, declaring that all he wants now is to eliminate the Tin Man and then go on destroying whoever he wants and going wherever he pleases. The House of Rules system warns that a high concentration of magic has been detected and decomposition is being auto-activated. Fogg realizes something is happening around him as his magic starts weakening little by little. Lan Bao also begins to act, trying to contain the situation. The protagonist smiles with a bit of relief, thinking that apparently his friend's House of Rules is functioning. The robot gathers energy in his hands and declares that if that's how it is, he cannot allow the demon to do as he pleases. The universal analysis of detail is completed, and the attack launches toward Fogg, who is shocked to see that the very same move that sealed him before is now about to strike again. He dodges swiftly, moving at incredible speed, mocking the robot and saying it's far too early to believe that such an attack could overpower him. Yet the energy arrows keep pursuing him until they finally strike, surprising him as he realizes they are even faster than before. Within seconds, all those arrows converge again and trap him. Wei Yi asks if the enemy has really been sealed. Lan Bao keeps analyzing and replies that something is wrong, as the data is too unstable. The House of Rules warns that the resolution was insufficient and the complete universal analysis has failed. The demon begins exuding terrifying force and roars, still restrained, that in those 3 years he advanced from rank A to rank S and is no longer the same. With ease, he shatters the arrows and charges forward, demanding if the robot truly believes that heap of junk can still contain him. Fogg keeps pressing in and snarls that it is time to crush that scrap pile. The robot activates the House of Rules power again, saying that even without full analysis, it can still have an effect. Wei Yi uses his innate high-speed skill and saves his companion from taking the blow. The demon's strike smashes into the ground, opening a crater. Foggy grows even more enraged and glares at them, calling them trash. The robot shouts for the protagonist to be careful. Wei Yi glances back in alarm and sees the demon kick a stone at him. He only has time to throw Lan Bao to the side and takes the impact himself. The robot worries for his friend. The protagonist is hurled far away by the force of the hit and crashes down, badly injured. Fogg watches the human and asks how he's still alive, wondering since when he had grown so weak that he couldn't even kill such a lowly being. Suddenly, the system announces that the universal analysis is in progress, extracting available data and analyzing Foggy, Demon Race, level A9. Inherited data being reanalyzed. Character Foggy, Demon Race, level S1. Current progress, 81%. Rule restriction executing, limiting his abilities based on resolution. Current resolution, 81.1%. Attribute restrictions, 81.1%. The demon is surprised and asks himself when he was hit by this. He looks aside, notices that the robot is still acting, and says he expected this, concluding that he must destroy that scrap before anything else. The system continues running and reports that the universal analysis is still in progress, with Foggy's resolution reaching 81.2%, limiting his attributes to the same percentage. Lan Bao grows irritated and declares that this fight is between the two of them, demanding that the demon face only him. Fogg grins and replies that neither of them will leave alive. In a flash, he unleashes an extremely powerful strike against Lan Bao, sending him flying. The system warns the robot that he has suffered severe bodily damage and will enter standby mode in 5 seconds. Even in terrible pain, he stands and orders the system to awaken his strength. The system warns that this could result in permanent data loss, but the robot answers that it doesn't matter because he must protect Wei Yi. Fogg approaches, saying he hates the feeling of being suppressed, but affirms that the portion of his power not yet sealed is still more than enough to end everything. The system reports that the universal analysis is still running, and resolution has now reached 82.1%, with attribute restriction also at 82.1%. Lan Bao thinks the universal analysis is progressing far too slowly and decides he must try repairing the House of Rules first. He initiates the repair, but the system warns that the process requires the creation ability, which will cause irreversible damage to his core, asking if he wishes to proceed. Without hesitation, Lan Bao answers yes. The demon senses his opponent is scheming something and asks if he still intends to rely on such tricks, warning he'll be sent straight to hell. He charges at full force, but the protagonist suddenly intervenes, blocking him with an attack and ordering him to stop immediately. The demon pulls back slightly, muttering that this human is an irritating pest. The protagonist positions himself in front of his friend and declares to the demon that if he wants to reach Lan Bao, he'll have to go through him first. The robot tries to stop him from making this choice, because he knows how much strength the enemy still has. Wei Yi thinks that even after drinking the healing potion, he can barely move after such a grave wound. He only had one bottle since the potion was expensive. It was all he managed to get. Now, facing a direct confrontation with the demon, maybe once the enemy's attributes drop further, there will be some chance. The system reports that attribute restriction is now at 83%. Fogg seethes and unleashes murderous intent, telling the protagonist that he is underestimating him, and snarls that just because his powers are slightly restrained, even trash like him dares to face him. He charges in fury, yelling that the more he thinks about it, the angrier he gets. The protagonist only tries to defend with his sword, realizing the enemy's blows are far too fast and heavy, and that if not for his reflexes, he would already be gravely wounded. Troubled, he acknowledges the demon's remaining power and admits he was naive to think he could buy enough time. Suddenly, an arrow-like marker appears before his eyes, pointing a direction. He wonders what it means, until the system announces that a sweep attack is being performed on the upper body, allowing him to dodge just in time. Shocked, he asks himself if this is really a sweep attack. Fogg scoffs, saying the human merely got lucky. The protagonist rolls across the ground, pulls back, and still confused, wonders what's happening, because now he can see the enemy's attack intent even before he strikes. The system announces again that the enemy is preparing a move and focusing power in his right leg. Lan Bao, speaking telepathically, tells the protagonist not to worry, because this is the power of the universal analysis. Wei Yi is astonished to realize his friend is helping him again. The robot explains that since he connected to the protagonist's system, he synchronized the universal analysis data with him. Wei Yi is impressed by this revelation. The robot adds that the protagonist has already collaborated with him before, and if the House of Rules is repaired, the analysis speed will increase, weakening Foggy further, but reaching 100% will still take time. Wei Yi tells his friend not to worry and to leave the rest to him. The robot says he's counting on his companion but warns him to be careful. The system announces that Foggy's resolution has reached 85%, and attribute restriction has likewise reached 85%. The demon, enraged, demands to know why the number is rising so quickly and orders them to stop immediately. He glares at them both and warns the robot not to mess things up again like last time, once more demanding that he cease. The system alerts the protagonist that Fogg is about to strike. Wei Yi braces himself, certain the battle is about to resume. The system keeps feeding him the directions of the attacks, letting the protagonist dodge with relative ease. As the fight continues, the universal analysis progresses further, reaching 88%. Wei Yi thinks that even though there is still a huge attribute gap with the analysis, he can avoid most of the blows. His innate accelerate skill has just recharged, and on top of that, the analysis is advancing quickly. Therefore, the longer he can hold out, the more the battle tilts in his favor. Fogg grows increasingly furious, saying that the protagonist runs like a frightened rat and that it only enrages him further. The demon charges in, determined to win at all costs, and uses his tail to try to seize the sword. The system warns that the weapon is being pulled and that the attribute limit has reached 89%. Fogg takes advantage by dragging the protagonist with the tail hooked on the blade and prepares to land a direct punch. Wei Yi thinks this is terrible, and the system announces that the strike will hit squarely in his face. At the last moment, he manages to dodge and, spinning the sword, wounds the enemy's tail, forcing him to release it. Out of patience, Fogg unleashes a flurry of rapid, relentless attacks. The system reports each move and the protagonist defends as best he can. He thinks the blows are far too fast, and even with the data being analyzed, he cannot react in time, leaving him only to defend passively. His arms shake so badly he can hardly move them, and his shoulders nearly dislocate. Yet Lan Bao stands right behind him, and retreat is not an option. He recalls his past when, even without being able to level up, he challenged monsters far stronger than himself to sharpen his skills. Battle after battle, wound after wound, but never retreating or hesitating, always overcoming with determination. To him, this is just another trial, and it is in moments of absolute pressure that true men are forged. Resolute, he raises his sword again to defend, and the innate block skill activates. The system announces he has achieved a perfect block and triggered the skill Stop. Stop is a skill that appears after a perfect block, repelling nearby enemies and inflicting 1 second of stun. Fogg is startled, saying he doesn't understand why he cannot move. The system confirms he has entered a 1-second stun state and that the attribute limit has reached 91%. The protagonist takes the opening, activates his innate accelerate skill, and charges forward. As he advances, he thinks that he has always fought to grow stronger and protect the few things he truly values, and that anyone who tries to take or harm them will have to go through him first. He shouts for the enemy to die and lands a decisive strike, wounding the demon's body. Fogg is shocked, crying out that it is impossible, demanding how he could be harmed by someone so insignificant. Wei Yi is surprised as well, thinking that even though he put all his strength into the attack, the result was only that small wound, proof of the enemy's unbelievable resistance. Still, Fogg's attributes continue to drop, giving hope that there may yet be a chance. The demon feels humiliated and roars that if not for the restrictions, a human would never have even the opportunity to disgrace him like this. The system reports that the attribute limit has now risen to 92%. Still consumed by fury, Fogg snarls that all this is fine and asks if the protagonist truly wishes to eliminate him, saying that if that's the case, he wants to see if the human has what it takes, and begins unleashing the rest of his power. The system warns that Fogg is activating demonic power and that hell itself is turning toward him. Wei Yi charges again, wondering what it means for hell to be watching, but decides not to care. It is not the time to think. Lan Bao shouts for him to be careful and warns that the enemy's attributes have shifted. The House of Rules system detects anomalies in the data and begins a preliminary corrective analysis. The demon rushes at the protagonist with all his might, declaring he never imagined a despicable human would force him to use such a vile power, and that for this reason, the time has come to die. The system again points out the direction of the attack, and Wei Yi manages to dodge and prepares to counter. During the strike, he senses something strange because the enemy's attributes don't seem to have changed. Even so, he continues pressing forward. The demon blocks the blow with ease and shoves him back. Confused, Wei Yi realizes that until recently he could cut Fogg's flesh, but now it feels as if he is striking solid steel. He confirms by analyzing the attributes that they have indeed just shifted. The demon charges at high speed, grinning, saying that now he will show what a true attack looks like. He lands a direct hit, launching the protagonist into the air. Wei Yi feels his consciousness starting to fade. Fogg keeps striking, ordering Wei Yi not to panic, declaring it isn't over yet. The system warns that a left circular kick is about to hit him. Even knowing the strike's direction, the protagonist cannot move to dodge and instead tries to block with his sword. The impact is so powerful that it hurls him into the wall. Lan Bao, distressed, cries out his friend's name. Fogg orders Lan Bao to stop shouting, saying that the boy is probably already dead. The system announces that the attribute limit has reached 93%, and the demon declares that now it is the scrap's turn. Out of the dust, battered and broken, Wei Yi appears coughing and tells the demon to wait. He stares at Fogg and asks if the wound he carries still hurts. Fogg mutters about shame and hatred, but Wei Yi states that as long as he is alive, the demon will never erase him. The protagonist thinks that the last blow completely fractured his left arm, but even so, he cannot simply fall. Fogg mocks him, saying he knows exactly what he's trying to do, and that provocation is the oldest trick. Still, he sneers that he cannot bear to hear such nonsense any longer. The demon rushes with all his might, and once more the system marks the direction of the strike. The protagonist dodges, and infuriated, Fogg screams that he will kill him. Wei Yi thinks that at least he achieved what he wanted, drawing the attacks back toward himself. The two keep fighting, with the protagonist only evading the blows. Meanwhile, Lan Bao watches and struggles to repair the House of Rules as quickly as possible, but the system warns that overload is reaching critical levels. Still, he refuses to give up, determined to protect his friend at any cost. The system reports that the current state rejects the use of Create and that the forced attempt has generated corrupted data. The protagonist's sword begins to break, but he still persists in blocking the strikes. Fogg cannot understand where Wei Yi finds the strength to keep fighting and roars at him to just die already. The system indicates that the attribute limit has reached 94.5%. Exhausted, wounded, and barely breathing, Wei Yi thinks his pressure is almost at its limit, and that if he doesn't endure until the analysis completes, he will surely be defeated. With the system's help, he dodges again and reflects that he must end this quickly. But another strike comes his way, and unable to avoid it, he takes it full on. Collapsing on the ground, completely drained, Wei Yi can no longer move. The demon approaches, readying the finishing blow, declaring it is over. The system warns that a devastating stomp is aimed at his head. Even without strength, with his body broken, the protagonist refuses to give up and commands his body to move. The strike smashes into the ground with devastating impact, but he slips away at the very last moment and is thrown aside. Fogg senses something odd and roars, asking why he cannot move his leg. Wei Yi doesn't understand either. Lan Bao warns that he won't be able to maintain control for long, that in 2 seconds the demon will break free. Wei Yi takes the chance, thanks his friend, and thinks the time has come to end this. He activates his innate swift step and, gathering his last strength, prepares the final blow. His sword aims straight for the enemy's neck, but already too damaged, it snaps in half before hitting the target. The protagonist cannot believe what just happened. Fogg seizes the opening and drives his hand through Wei Yi's body. Gravely wounded, the protagonist begins to collapse. Lan Bao cries out for him. The demon pulls his hand free, laughs, and asks if Wei Yi really believed he could defeat him, saying that such an insignificant being must know his limits. He keeps laughing, shouting that one day he will become the strongest in the world, that he will not die here, and that anyone who crosses his path will be annihilated. Lan Bao, in disbelief, watches. With his last breath, Wei Yi looks at him, apologizes, and tears run down his face. Lan Bao begins trembling with rage. The system announces that the House of Rules is initiating information intervention mode. Numerous arrows appear around Fogg, and the system confirms. Character Fogg fully analyzed at 100%, complete control acquired, all special statuses removed. The demon roars that Lan Bao has only won for now, but one day he will become even stronger and break the seal again. He declares that the robot will never be able to save that child, nor himself. Overcome with rage, Lan Bao orders Fogg to shut up, and, unleashing absolute power, creates a massive pressure that pins him to the ground. Fogg tries to speak, but the system announces that he is silenced. Lan Bao collapses to the floor and begins linking to everything. The system declares, "Character connected, Wei Yi. System, inner world loading. Warning, the inner world of character Wei Yi is collapsing. Protection system requests exit from inner world. Request denied." Inside Wei Yi's inner world, the robot watches the screens around him and realizes that all information connected to the protagonist is being severed, which is extremely dangerous. The system alerts that the action link has been cut, the attribute link has been cut, and the life link has been cut. Lan Bao looks ahead and finds the memory link, which is about to break as well. He grabs it, saying this cannot happen, because if even the memory link shatters, they will never return. The system announces calculation failure and states Wei Yi's survival probability is 0%. Even so, Lan Bao refuses to give up and concludes there is only one way to solve the problem. He connects the entire system directly to his own body. The main system confirms LB.0 successfully linked to the memory of character Wei Yi. Lan Bao breathes in relief and declares he will protect his friend even if he can never separate from him again. The system announces preparation for reconstruction of character Wei Yi and confirms the process is underway. The armor surrounding the House of Rules begins to shine and the entire place starts dissolving. The demon and Lan Bao also begin to vanish as all the energy flows into the protagonist's body. The system confirms execution of the final command, fusion. Suddenly, the protagonist wonders how long he has been wandering that space, remembering only being defeated by Fogg and drifting lost ever since. He reflects that he always believed death would be eternal darkness, but instead he sees a world of cherished memories, making death feel almost unreal. A memory surfaces of building robots with Lan Bao during childhood, a nostalgic, joyful recollection, and he wonders how his friend is now, whether he managed to defeat the demon and survive in the end. He blames himself, saying that if he had been a higher level or if the sword had not broken, the outcome would have been different. He always believed effort could change everything, yet each time an invisible force struck him down at the most critical moment, and that feeling of being toyed with by fate is deeply frustrating. Suddenly, he notices a peculiar memory fragment nearby. Without knowing its origin, he decides to touch it. The fragment radiates light and a different energy, transporting him to a beautiful place filled with people. He realizes it is the small town where he lived 10 years ago and sees that he has entered one of his own memories. He sees a boy running and complaining about his bad luck, saying he only wanted to find someone easily intimidated by money, but never expected that boy to be crazy enough to jump into the lake rather than hand over his chain. The boy mutters that if the kid drowns, they'll be in serious trouble. His companion asks what they should do, and he replies that they need to hide for a few days. The protagonist recognizes the memory, remembering that back then he had no way to resist threats, and eventually gave in. He thinks he should be there now. While he calls for help, people argue about what to do, since he is about to drown. Some insist that because it is the waterfall at the lake's center, if they tried to save him, they'd be dragged down as well. The present Wei Yi tries to help his past self, but his hand passes through the body. Surprised, he concludes it's natural that he cannot touch anything since this is only a memory. Still, he cannot avoid the frustration, for this is not the first time. Suddenly, he hears a voice asking everyone to step aside. He turns, startled, recognizing that familiar sound. The crowd is astonished to see a robot pushing through. Lan Bao leaps into the water without hesitation and swims as fast as possible toward the protagonist. As he advances, he declares he will never let anything happen to Wei Yi because he must protect him at all costs. Wei Yi is stunned to recognize this as his friend's inner voice. Lan Bao reaches the boy and tells him to grab his hand, but Wei Yi keeps sinking. Worried, Lan Bao thinks time is running out and that his friend is about to drown. Silently, he apologizes to his mother and father, afraid he will fail to keep his promise. Then he decides to use universal analysis to locate Wei Yi. The protagonist observes, realizing this is the same ability Lan Bao used in the battle against Fogg. The robot declares he must first stop the mechanical cascade. He invokes his creation skill, generates an iron block, and hurls it at the waterfall, creating an explosion that halts the flow. Then he dives, swimming toward his friend. As he approaches, he uses dismantle to create space at the bottom of the water, protecting Wei Yi inside it. Afterward, he carries him to the surface and shouts for anyone who knows first aid to help his master. On the riverbank, some people are already prepared to intervene. One introduces himself as a doctor from a nearby hospital. He quickly administers first aid and announces that breathing and pulse are normal, consciousness is intact, and therefore there should be no severe complications. Lan Bao insists on confirming this is true. The protagonist keeps watching the memory and recalls that even dazed back then, he never let go of the medallion he held. His past self clutched it tightly, repeating that no one could take it. Lan Bao tries to calm him, promising that no one will ever take that medallion. Wei Yi reflects that he already knew this, because anything tied to his family, no matter how small, always held immeasurable value. To him, family is irreplaceable, beyond time or space. He thinks he is happy to relive these memories, but the longer he stays, the more he feels himself fading, and he understands it is time to go. At that moment, he hears a voice asking if he is leaving already. He turns, surprised, and sees Lan Bao inside his memory looking at him. Wei Yi asks if his friend can really see him. Lan Bao answers yes, but only for a short while. The robot explains that everything happened so suddenly he never had the chance to say what he needed. And now he has one last opportunity, so he must tell him everything. The protagonist wonders if this is because he is dead, but asks his friend to say what he must. Lan Bao asks how much Wei Yi knows about his parents. Confused, he replies that his mother and father died in an accident when he was very young, and that all he knows is what his grandfather told him, that they were developers at a company, but nothing remarkable. Lan Bao confirms that was the version his grandfather told, but reveals the truth. Wei Yi's mother and father were the creators of the systems that gave birth to him, Lan Bao. The protagonist is shocked, shouting to know what his friend means. Lan Bao explains that creation has grown so powerful it cannot be opposed, and that he understands the plans of Wei Yi's parents and the responsibility they carried. He states that no matter how hard creation tries, it still cannot take the next step, until by glimpsing Wei Yi's future and reuniting with him, even if only to part again, he understood his true mission. He places a hand on his chest and generates a small seal. He explains that it contains his core data, methods of system use and backups of his memories, handing it to Wei Yi and warning that at the right time it will be extremely useful. However, he cautions him to use it carefully, as creation and its emissaries are always watching. Confused, Wei Yi says he doesn't understand any of it, that he should be dead, and begins to feel that Lan Bao's words sound like a farewell. Desperate, he asks what is happening outside. Suddenly, the system interrupts the conversation and announces that the fusion is complete and that the host's awakening will begin. The system retrieves the protagonist's soul, leaving him stunned. Lan Bao smiles and says the fusion is finished and that this is good. He tells his friend not to worry because the system will return him to the place where he needs to be. Wei Yi still remains confused, asking what system Lan Bao is talking about. With a tear rolling down his face, he questions if this means his friend will disappear. Lan Bao only smiles and waves his hand, saying that as long as he lives within Wei Yi's memories, he will never vanish. He affirms that when the day comes that Wei Yi gathers all the fragments of the world, they will meet again. With a serene smile, he bids farewell, saying goodbye. Wei Yi tries to hold onto his companion, but Lan Bao's image drifts further and further away until it disappears completely, and then he awakens. Opening his eyes, he realizes he is inside something. Looking around, he sees it as an adventurer's tent and wonders if he's really alive, since even the wound in his chest has vanished. Suddenly, he hears a voice announcing that the LB.0 system is running. Surprised, he sees a sequence of messages appear before him. Interface connected, panel connected, skills connected, automatic system connected, LB system running. The system asks if he wishes to automatically activate the universal analysis skill. Other messages follow. Special state demon body loaded, special state core data library locked, loading special skill demonic power. Wei Yi understands that Lan Bao truly gave him the complete system. As more notifications appear, he checks his new stats. Strength level 70, speed 63, mental power 35, elemental power 32, luck 56, stamina 64, extra point 0. Skills: universal analysis level 1 inaccessible, maximum level, innate acceleration, innate block, special demonic power. Special status: bound main data library, demon body. Demon body. A demon's physique accidentally fused with a human, granting immense enhancement plus 20 to all basic attributes. Special demonic power. An ability inherent to the demon body that allows extraction of energy from hell. During its use, the user is watched by hell and their attributes can be altered freely. Wei Yi is even more astonished to realize that not only the system, but also Foga's abilities are there. Upon examining, he sees the system continues processing. Inaccessible in execution. Inaccessible silently blocked 10 incoming data requests. Main data library unresolved. Access impossible. Shocked, he sees his companion's image appear on the screen, but instead of the true name, it shows LB01. Wei Yi calls out to Lan Bao, asking if he can hear him, but there is no response. He concludes that the system has fully initialized and that now his only lead is the fragments of the world mentioned by his friend. He remembers Lan Bao and promises himself that even without knowing where to start, he will gather all the fragments of the world as quickly as possible to reunite with him. The system calls again, informing him that universal analysis is not yet active and asks if he wishes to enable it. A new message appears. Restricted functions detected. Activate universal analysis immediately. Wei Yi agrees, thinking that since he has no clues yet, he can at least test the skill. As soon as he activates it, the system confirms automatic execution. A blinding light fills the area. Everything around begins to be mapped and analyzed, even small insects. The protagonist receives the information and is impressed, reflecting that he had used the skill before, but now it is far more powerful. Every object analyzed is projected in his vision, also granting experience. Clothes identified, 10 experience points. Water bottle identified, 10 experience points. Beetle horse identified, 10 experience points. Soon, the accumulated experience is enough to level up. F2, F3, F4. Stunned, Wei Yi thinks he never believed someone like him, incapable of leveling up, could transform like this. Emotional, he thanks his loyal companion and promises to treasure this new life to the fullest. Suddenly, someone outside notices movement in the tent and decides to check. The protagonist realizes someone is entering. Jojo steps into the tent and shows happiness upon seeing his friend awake, grateful that he finally regained consciousness. Universal analysis immediately scans him. Name Jojo, human, 17 years old, male. Wei Yi rejoices at reuniting with his companion as the system detects additional data on that human and begins a deeper analysis. Jojo comments that Wei Yi was unconscious for so long that everyone worried something serious had happened. A few seconds later, the system completes the analysis and displays all the information: stats, race, and skills. The protagonist is impressed, recognizing it as the same status screen Lan Bao once used to analyze Fogi. Jojo scolds himself, saying he was unlucky to speak that way and shouldn't have said negative things. Wei Yi asks if his friend can see anything unusual around them, and Jojo, startled, looks quickly to the sides and asks what he means. Wei Yi smiles, disguising, and says perhaps he only imagined it. He thinks that apparently normal people cannot see overlapping data. Then Jojo puts his hand in his pocket and gives him the talisman, saying it belongs to him. He explains that the amulet was already broken when they found it and lowers his head, admitting he knew how important it was and wanted to repair it before Wei Yi awoke. But being clumsy, he couldn't fix it properly. The protagonist replies that it's fine, thanks him for keeping it safe, and comments that although the object has been with him for a long time, he no longer feels remorse. After all, as they promised, he will keep looking forward. He reflects that now he has new goals, even more important ones. Jojo sighs in relief and admits he was overthinking and felt anxious, but seeing his companion full of energy reassures him. Then he starts leaving the tent, saying he must tell the captain that Wei Yi has awakened, since she will be very moved. The protagonist answers that he will be there soon. He just needs to get ready, while thinking that there are still many things he must confirm. What happened in the ruins, how he was found, and that he cannot waste time. At that moment, he receives a notification indicating that there was a hunting rifle beside him. Confused, he asks if this is not an analysis error since it was just a small turtle. The system reports that it received a correction from the host and adjusted the data. Rifle corrected to little turtle. Surprised, Wei Yi realizes the analysis was corrected in real time. Outside the tent, the group was debating whether to continue exploring since they had barely managed to collect any crystals and the losses had been far too great. Many thought it safer to return to the Adventurers Guild. At that moment, the protagonist stepped out of the tent and everyone called his name. Surprised and relieved, Lin Xiang asked how he was and if he had recovered. Wei Yi smiled and replied that he was much better and that nothing serious remained. The captain let out a sigh of relief and said it was wonderful, but stressed that they were discussing what to do next, since the injuries were severe and perhaps it was time to rethink their plans. The protagonist noticed that everyone was hurt and asked what had happened. Lin Xiang explained that after falling into those ruins, they were attacked by a flock of crown-wing birds, Class D. They fought with all their strength and barely avoided more serious injuries. Wei Yi thought to himself that he already imagined the birds would attack as well. The captain continued, saying they had been scattered, lost contact with one another, and were constantly ambushed, believing it would be the end. However, they heard a terrifying roar that drove the birds away for a while, allowing them to follow the sound and regroup. Jojo added that it was precisely those three who followed the roar and found Machi Hao and Wei Yi unconscious in a corner. The protagonist thought it was the demon who had killed Machi Hao and the others, and that somehow Lan Bao had wanted him to be found by his companions. The captain then asked if Wei Yi could explain exactly what happened in the ruins. He hesitated but decided to tell them. The group was shocked and questioned whether the magic crystal really transformed into a humanoid demon. Wei Yi confirmed, explaining that it was incredibly powerful and the three had no chance. He only survived because he never touched the crystals. One of the youths commented that Machi Hao had tried to steal Wei Yi's crystals and ended up summoning the demon, which made sense. Jojo agreed, saying that was exactly the kind of thing Machi Hao would do. Lin Xiang grew worried and said that for the demon to have dominated everyone so easily, it had to be at least Class B, maybe even A, and the bigger problem was that no one knew where it had gone. The protagonist replied that, having lost consciousness due to his wounds, he didn't know what happened afterward. He thought that part of the demon story was true, but decided not to reveal anything about Lan Bao. The captain stated that for safety, they should return to Wanxing City, both because of the demon's disappearance and the deaths, to report to the guild. Some lowered their heads, others agreed, concluding that this was the best option. Jojo called the protagonist to pack, commenting there would be no time to gather more crystals for the mission. Suddenly, Wei Yi grew worried and asked Jojo what day it was. He replied that his friend had been unconscious for 3 days and nights, and, counting from their departure, it was already September 15th. Wei Yi panicked, realizing it was the day to pay the rent, and immediately ran off. Jojo asked where he was going, but the protagonist rushed to the captain, calling her name loudly. She turned, startled, and asked what was wrong. He explained that he couldn't go to Huanxing because he needed to return to Stargear City. With the end of the day approaching, Wei Yi and Jojo ran into the forest. Wei Yi asked why his friend was coming along, and Jojo answered that he was worried since the forest was foggy, full of beasts, and therefore dangerous. Besides, the protagonist seemed to have urgent business, and an extra ally could help. Wei Yi thanked him and Jojo laughed, telling him not to worry because he would do everything to protect him. As he moved through the forest, the protagonist thought that he had borrowed the missing magic crystals from the captain in advance, and that if he delivered the rent before midnight, everything would be fine. But if he missed the deadline, his grandfather and Zhao Xiao would be in danger, possibly evicted or even attacked by monsters. He swore to himself he would not let that happen. Suddenly, the system alerted that a fang wolf was nearby and recognized it automatically, granting 10 experience points to the protagonist. Wei Yi immediately grew alert, raised his hand in front of his companion and asked him to wait. Jojo, confused, asked what was going on, and the protagonist explained there were monsters nearby. Thanks to the system, he could map the entire area and soon realized there were many. He shouted that they were surrounded. The system displayed his status screen: Strength 70, Resistance 63, Spirit 35, Elemental Power 32, Luck 56, Speed 64. He still had 96 unallocated points, and the listed skills were Analysis of all things Level 1 Inaccessible Maximum, Innate Quick Step, Innate Block, Special Demonic Power, Bound Core Information Library, Demon Body, and Auto-Leveling in progress. The system detected about 20 fang wolves, most at level E3 and some E4. Wei Yi told Jojo, who was astonished since he could not see anything. Soon after, the wolves drew near and the system displayed detailed information. Fang wolf, common monster, class E3 and E4, strength between 140 and 144, energy 48, spirit 70 to 88, elemental power 72 to 74, luck 88 to 90, and speed 148 to 150. Jojo, now seeing them, was alarmed and asked what the protagonist planned to do. Wei Yi explained that fang wolves never release their prey, chasing it until the end, so fleeing was pointless. The only option was to fight and defeat them. Jojo questioned if he was really in condition to fight with so many wounds, but Wei Yi assured him he was fine. The two positioned themselves back to back, each guarding one side. Jojo grew spirited, saying he was relieved to see his friend ready to fight and that he would give his all. With his shield, he struck 3 wolves at once, laughed, and declared it was time to teach those beasts a lesson. Wei Yi then activated Demon Body, the physical fusion of demon and human under special circumstances, which granted him 20 extra points to all base attributes. His strength rose to 90 and his speed to 84. One of the wolves lunged at him, and Wei Yi thought his weapon might be damaged, but with the attribute boost, it should be enough. During the battle, the system recognized Dutch grass, and he received another 10 experience points. The condition for advancement was reached, and the protagonist was promoted to rank E1. Shocked, with a single strike he eliminated the monster charging him. Smiling, he shouted to Jojo that he had just leveled up. The system updated his stats, and Jojo, happy, said his friend had finally broken the barrier that kept him from evolving, reminding him that he had always said no one remains unlucky forever. He encouraged Wei Yi to now fight as an E-level adventurer, stressing that it was a completely different world from someone still at F. He explained that in this world, leveling up doesn't increase all attributes equally, but every awakened person has 6 main ones: strength, speed, resistance, elemental power, spirit, and luck. At level F1, the attributes are called base points, totaling 200 for all adventurers. Strength influences physical attack, reach, and critical blows, while boosting body power. Resistance includes defense, life, recovery, and toughness. Speed affects mana bar, elemental recovery, skill cooldown, and mental clarity. Luck acts on attack, elemental defense, range, absorption, and enhancement of magical power. Spirit increases dodge chance, critical rate, skill success, and rare item synthesis, improving overall affinity. Elemental power affects movement and attack speed, sharpening reflexes. Each level grants 12 extra points to distribute, and every 10 levels, veterans can ascend to the next ranking. The levels follow in order from the lowest to the highest: level F, level E, level D, level C, level B, level A, and at the very top, level S. With each rank advancement, the 6 basic stats increase by 200 points in total, a qualitative leap that naturally gives higher ranks an advantage over the lower ones. Before the change, Wei Yi's stats were Strength 70, Endurance 63, Spirit 35, Elemental Power 32, Luck 56, and Speed 64, along with 108 free attribute points. His skills included analysis of all things Level 1 Inaccessible, Innate Quickstep, Innate Block, Special Demonic Power, Special Status, the Central Information Library Bound, and the Demonic Body. When he advances to level E, his stats undergo a drastic transformation. Strength 140, Endurance 126, Spirit 70, Elemental Power 64, Luck 112, and Speed 128, along with 120 free attribute points. His skills remain the same, but the library becomes the core information library bound. The system also confirms that the demonic body increased the stats in sync. Wei Yi keeps fighting while reflecting that, since the demonic body adds directly to the base stats, he now gains 120 extra attribute points with each level advancement. Compared to an ordinary person, it still feels unbelievable to him that someone who once could hardly level up has suddenly gained enough power to stand on par with a rank D. Jojo keeps fighting with everything he has, but points out that the number of wolves there is far greater than 20, and compared to a normal pack, this is way too many. The protagonist thinks the same, since the amount is far beyond normal for a pack of fang wolves, giving him an uneasy feeling. Suddenly, the wolves begin to behave differently, and Wei Yi notices they are carrying out alternating attacks. He warns his companion that this is not good at all, as the pack is trying to wear them down. Out of nowhere, a terrifyingly loud howl echoes, and a much larger wolf appears on top of the cliff. The system quickly identifies it as a silver fang wolf, awarding the protagonist 10 more experience points. It also warns that this is a dangerous target and that he must proceed with caution. Wei Yi shouts for Jojo to start running, because that is the boss. Both of them dash off, trying to force their way through the wolves surrounding them, but the silver wolf leaps from the cliff and lands right in front of them, releasing immense pressure. The other wolves bow low, showing respect, for the alpha has just arrived. The system scans the silver wolf status, revealing that it is a level D10 boss. Its stats are Strength 214, Endurance 190, Spirit 202, Elemental Power 223, Luck 169, and Speed 250. Skills: Maximum Bite, Maximum Pounce, Maximum Tracking, and Silver Light Level 3. Special State: None. A boss, the strongest mutated individual of a specific species, serves as the leader, with 6-dimensional base attributes far above normal and a higher level. A boss also possesses unique and powerful elemental abilities, and normally it takes a team of the same level to defeat one. The protagonist thinks he must be incredibly unlucky, since everything he doesn't want to encounter always shows up, and he wonders why he keeps running into monsters with such absurd stats. Jojo warns that the path ahead is completely blocked by fang wolves and they need to find another way. Wei Yi keeps his eyes on the boss, thinking he fears that if they try to run, the monster won't give them a chance. So he concludes there are only 2 options: eliminate the threat, or at least injure it badly enough to secure an escape. He orders the system to open the attribute panel, reviews his stats, and decides that strength and speed are what matter most. He then instructs the system to allocate all free points into those 2, raising his strength from 140 to 220 and his speed from 128 to 168. The protagonist tells his companion that he will deal with the boss and asks if he can handle all the Fang wolves behind them. Jojo answers yes, but worries for Wei Yi, questioning whether he is sure about facing the boss alone. Without hesitation, the protagonist focuses and charges forward, saying he will only try to wound the wolf so everything will be fine. The boss noticed he was under attack and charged forward with terrifying speed. The system announced that the Silver Fang Wolf King was about to use the skill bite. Wei Yi thought this was his chance and, with a swift move, slid under the beast, dodging the strike. He activated Quickstep and reflected that normally the belly of a monster was the most vulnerable point, making it the perfect moment to attack. The wolf began releasing a strange energy, and the system warned that the king was preparing to use silver light. A blinding glow radiated from the creature's body so bright it disrupted Wei Yi's vision, and he thought he couldn't see anything, something expected, since a boss skill should never be underestimated. He realized he had to get out of there immediately or he'd become an easy target. The system detected the host Blino's status and announced it was attempting to convert information into audio. It then reported that it was analyzing the structure of silver light but failed. Another alert echoed, warning of imminent danger as elemental energy gathered ahead. Wei Yi saw cutting waves rushing toward him, tearing through everything in their path and wreaking large-scale devastation. He was shocked by the destructive force, comparable to a condensed elemental power beam capable of ignoring any defense. Had he not dodged in time, he would have been reduced to scraps like the surrounding trees. The Wolf King reappeared before him, and the system informed him that the silver light effect was active. The beast's entire body was wrapped in this power with a slight elemental boost, a massive energy concentration on its right, and imminent danger. Wei Yi thought that the enemy still had an elemental buff and that the effect was too wide-ranging. With only a broken sword, he had no chance of facing it head-on. This frustrated him because if he had an equivalent offensive ability, he wouldn't be so passive in battle. The system picked up on his thoughts and announced it was trying to learn the elemental principles of silver light, but failed again. Still, it repeated the analysis attempts, all unsuccessful. Wei Yi began to wonder if the system could really copy a boss skill just by observation. While dodging attacks, he reflected that from that day on, he learned his own thoughts could assist the system's analysis. Even without many abilities in the past, he had accumulated plenty of knowledge about them. If that could also serve to learn new techniques, the battle might change. Determined to test his theory, he asked the system if it could capture elemental changes in real time. LB confirmed the command had been received and activated capture. The system responded with a notification, reporting that it was attempting to learn Silver Light's principles, and this time managed to identify the skill as being tied to the electric element. Wei Yi thought the trajectory was finally becoming clear. Jojo, ahead, noticed the wolves suddenly retreating and looking back saw the boss amassing an absurd amount of energy. LB reported new insights into the stellar map of the electric element and that Silver Light comprehension was advancing into deeper analysis. Wei Yi was impressed to witness the true nature of a skill in action. The system confirmed it had reached superior understanding and was loading the conditions necessary for the host to learn Silver Light. The attack was launched again, devastating everything ahead with colossal force, but Wei Yi remained unharmed thanks to his companion stepping in with the star shield. Shocked, he saw Jojo throw himself into the strike without hesitation. Jojo turned and asked if Wei Yi was hurt, revealing he had a bad feeling when he saw the wolves retreating, as it could only mean the boss was about to use its ultimate move. Wei Yi apologized for causing so much trouble and thought he had gotten too close to the enemy trying to understand its ability, but fortunately Jojo had arrived in time to save him. He then smiled and looked at his hand, realizing he could finally feel the elemental power that had been repressed within him for so long. Jojo warned that the star shield was almost at its limit, the damage it absorbed nearly unbelievable. LB explained that the star shield, also known as the galaxy skill or conjunct, could be used for a set time and absorb damage equivalent to the energy attribute multiplied by 10. Moreover, any attack that struck the shield was reduced to 25% of its original power. However, if the shield broke before time, the stellar power would rebound and severely injure the bearer or disjunctor, causing a weakening status for 3 minutes with no early release possible. In this weakened state, all attributes fell by 60%. Jojo, pressured, shouted that if this continued, they might really die there, and stressed they needed to follow the plan. He told Wei Yi to go first, saying he would stay behind to hold the boss as long as possible, and instructed his friend to run east, away from the Fang Wolves, to the safest area. Then he would try to find a way to escape. Wei Yi stood up angrily, saying he understood Jojo's concern since he was at a lower level, but reminded him that after the Star Shield's debuff, it would be much harder for him to get away. The protagonist declared that if he simply fled and left a companion behind, he would regret it for the rest of his life. He then began imbuing his sword with the new ability and said they were not completely cornered, stressing that if they had come this far together, they would also return together. At that moment, LB notified that the analysis was complete and that silver light had been learned, also announcing that the stellar map had been unlocked. Wei Yi's attributes now were Strength 140 plus 80, Energy 126, Spirit 70, Stellar Power 64, Luck 112, Speed 128 plus 40, and Free Point 0. Skills: Universal Analysis Level 1. Access denied, maximum level, Innate Quickstep, Innate Block, Special Demonic Power, Stellar Map, maximum skill, Silver Light 1 of 3, special status, Bound Core Information Library, and Demon Body Auto Update. Elemental skills like magic crystals were features granted to this world by creation. Both awakened and magical beasts could, as long as they had a compatible element, gain the chance to master such skills. Elements were divided into 5 types: star, electric, core, cloud, and flower, each with its own characteristics. The greater the elemental affinity, the higher the chance to understand a skill of that element. Human researchers seeking more stable abilities tried to study the principles behind this power, but even after countless experiments with monsters, they failed to observe elemental changes. In the end, all results were deemed failures. The system continued to notify that Wei Yi had learned the skill, understood the configuration of the electric element, and unlocked the stellar map. The protagonist thought he had replicated the technique through the LBO Blue Treasure system, recognizing it as a pure element skill, even rarer still. The system explained that Silver Light was a special electric elemental skill, a pure manifestation of electric power. All manifested elemental damage was considered elemental damage, capable of ignoring most physical defenses. Elemental power consumption was low, sustained state was medium, and release short. Jojo, seeing Wei Yi using the same ability as the boss, was stunned that he could grasp such a complex technique in such a critical moment, especially one that belonged to a boss. The protagonist replied that it must have just been luck, since the surrounding elements were compatible with him. In his thoughts, Wei Yi considered this explanation more acceptable for his companion, but even having acquired a new skill, he recognized that the attribute gap with the Wolf King was still immense. He knew he would need the system's assistance to find the enemy's weak points. The wolf ended the skill and switched to brute force, breaking Jojo's defense and hurling him away. Quickly, Wei Yi rushed to his friend and caught him, asking if he was all right. LB announced that the star shield had broken, putting his companion in a grievously wounded state and further afflicted with weakening from the shattering. Jojo began coughing blood, and the system confirmed that the weakening status had been applied, reducing all his attributes by 60%. Jojo tried to speak but barely had the strength to breathe. The protagonist told his friend not to waste energy, assuring him that from now on he would handle things himself. The Silver Fang Wolf King approached and let out a ferocious roar before Wei Yi. He positioned himself to fight and told his companion that if he still had the strength to walk, he should move away. The boss began gathering energy to unleash its skill, and Wei Yi ordered LB to predict the timing and angle of the incoming attacks. The system initiated analysis and reported arrival in 0.76 seconds, vertical displacement 81 degrees, arrival in 0.81 seconds, vertical displacement 12 degrees, arrival in 0.87 seconds, vertical displacement 67 degrees. With precise movements, Wei Yi dodged the first strike and thought that as long as he could predict time and angle, he could conserve energy by adjusting his trajectory. After escaping every blast, he took advantage of the opening and positioned himself so the remaining attacks collided with each other. The beast, enraged, switched to brute force, but the protagonist dodged again. He realized the monster was trying to use dust to obstruct his sight, but that meant nothing against LB. The system warned that a light blade was incoming with vertical displacement 45 degrees, followed by another at 70 degrees. Wei Yi thought the situation was bad and moved quickly. Even without being able to see, he dodged perfectly. Finding an opening, he prepared and struck, declaring it was his turn now. The blow landed on the wolf's face, leaving a visible wound. The battle raged on, their powers colliding fiercely. Jojo watched in awe, wondering if this was really the same Wei Yi he knew, for the strength he was showing was unbelievable. The protagonist predicted each strike and blocked them with ease, but soon began panting heavily. He realized the consumption of elemental power was greater than expected, since just a few light blades had already left him nearly exhausted without causing serious damage to the Wolf King. On top of that, his elemental recovery was far inferior to the enemy's. The system reported that the boss was being influenced by a mental power that accelerated its recovery. Wei Yi understood that the longer the fight dragged on, the worse it would get for him. He knew he had no choice but to use his last resort. The Wolf King prepared another strike, and the system warned that a colossal amount of element was gathering around the beast. Multiple alerts went off, stressing that it was impossible to predict a safe escape route. Wei Yi realized the moment had come and thought he had to decide victory or defeat right then. He called LB and ordered activation of demonic power. The system obeyed, unleashing the energy. Instantly, another warning appeared. Hell had begun to notice him. An unbearable pain invaded his mind as if his head were about to explode. More messages followed. Hell tried to invade his brain, control his limbs, take over his senses, awaken his bloodlust. Attempt blocked, control failed. Annoyed, Wei Yi thought he should never have allowed that power to take control. Meanwhile, the Wolf King continued amassing elemental energy on an absurd scale. A final alert appeared. Entering demonization state. A massive force took over Wei Yi. His eyes darkened, and a cold, dense aura enveloped his body. In an instant, his elemental power leapt from 64 to 448. In exchange, his strength dropped by 100, his agility by 128, his energy by 80, his luck by 90, and his elemental power by 50. The Wolf King prepared to strike, and Wei Yi, with empty voice and fixed gaze, declared it was time for the creature to experience defeat by its own skill. They attacked simultaneously, but the pressure of Wei Yi's strike proved overwhelmingly superior. Their energies clashed in the air, but the protagonist's charge sliced through the enemy's attack like paper, severing the wolf's head along with it. The impact was so powerful it split mountains behind the beast, triggering a colossal explosion. The system announced that the wolf had been defeated and that Wei Yi had gained a massive amount of experience, instantly rising from level E1 to level E5. As the light faded, his stats returned exactly to what they had been before, with his distribution preserved, and as a reward for victory, he received 48 free points. Jojo had also managed to earn enough points to level up, advancing to rank E10. He stood frozen, still processing the fact that the boss had been defeated with a single strike, and that one of the mountains behind them had been completely obliterated, which made him wonder what exactly the protagonist had experienced inside those ruins. He then noticed that his companion still looked somewhat different, and a notification appeared saying that the host's mental stability had been detected and the demonic power forcibly deactivated. Wei Yi, still with a throbbing headache, thought that he hadn't expected the side effects to be so severe after such a short period of use, and that if it weren't for LB, he might have completely lost control. The protagonist looked down at his hand and sensed something strange. Another notification appeared stating that Hell was satisfied with his performance and had therefore left a mark of the Inferno on his body. LB pointed out that it couldn't analyze any information about the mark, and Wei Yi was surprised to see that not even the universal analysis could decipher what kind of power it was. He decided that he should use that ability sparingly from that night onward. Jojo came running and asked if he was okay. The protagonist smiled, saying he was fine but exhausted from purging elemental energy. He glanced at the clock and realized it was already past 11, and they still had a long way back, so they needed to hurry. Wei Yi looked at the boss's corpse and commented that it was a shame processing its materials would take time, so they would have to leave it there. A big waste. LB detected extractable materials, and Jojo said he would stay behind to handle that, explaining that his father owned a material shop and that he himself had hunted many monsters for parts before, so he had the experience to do it quickly, and he had already recovered his strength. He drew his knife and approached, saying the boss was full of treasures, high-quality magic crystals and materials for weapons and equipment. Jojo made it clear that since the protagonist had landed the killing blow, all the loot would belong to him. Jojo smiled and added that he never imagined his friend would grow so strong so quickly, and that now he no longer needed help for the rest of the journey, which was perfect since he could focus on processing those materials. Wei Yi tried to argue, a bit worried, but Jojo cut him off, saying there was no need to worry since he'd do everything for free, and with a grin, added that he'd heard the Wolf King's meat was delicious, asking only that the protagonist save him a piece. Wei Yi relaxed a little at that, and Jojo began pushing him toward the exit, saying he should go before time ran out. Still hesitant, the protagonist agreed and said he would leave everything there with Jojo. He then set off toward the city, thinking he now had a more urgent matter to deal with. In the outskirts of Starforge City, someone was shouting inside a building, demanding immediate payment. An annoyed little girl asked why the rush, saying her older brother had promised to return that night, and questioning whether the adults couldn't wait a bit longer. The man kept pressuring her, saying he wouldn't wait. The contract was clear, black and white. Either she paid, or she was out. The girl tried to stay composed, but the man pointed to a machine, saying that crystalline energy magic device had been earned through his boss's hard work, and that she should be grateful he was renting it to her. He went on, saying her brother had probably died on the road, that he had always been useless, and that their group, a drunk old man and 2 kids, was nothing but a pack of worthless nobodies. The girl grew angrier, marched up to him, and kicked his foot in fury and defiance, shouting that if he dared say another word about her brother, he would deeply regret it. The man, now fuming, asked if she had a death wish. Suddenly, more people entered the room, and one of them announced that it was time to end this. Exactly at midnight, the leader of the Bear Slayers Guild, the head of the debt collectors, and a rank B hunter named Zeki, had ordered them to carry out their task. He emphasized that, in his opinion, crystalline energy magic devices weren't for just anyone, so she had 2 choices: pay the full rent or leave the city immediately. He then asked what her choice would be. The furious girl demanded to know what they planned to do and declared she would report them for bullying the weak. The men laughed as they closed in, asking who she thought she could report them to, since they were the ones who made the rules in that city. A drunk old man began grumbling, saying he couldn't even drink in peace, getting up and complaining that he'd been sleeping just fine until those noisy kids woke him up, and that from their impatience, you'd think the sky itself was about to fall. This is Luo Bang, an ordinary human and former mechanical engineer. The girl felt relieved to see her grandfather waking up. The same man from before mocked him, asking why that old man was worried about the sky when he could barely stand on his own feet. Bang replied that all this trouble was just over a bit of rent money, and if that was what they really wanted, then they would have it. He grabbed a controller and pressed a button. Suddenly, something began to rumble, startling the group, who asked if it was some kind of earthquake. The lights flickered on, revealing a giant robot. The scarred man laughed, saying he was startled for a moment, while another young man scoffed that it was just a pile of broken metal. Since ever since creation had revoked all robot control rights, none of that should work anymore. They told the old man to stop talking nonsense. One of the men at the back remarked that if it couldn't move, it was just scrap and worth nothing, but the leader interrupted them all, saying he'd take it. Zeki examined it carefully and admitted he never thought he'd see a JY series robot there. Military models with external restrictions, high endurance, and superior performance. He lamented that they were useless since the extinction of AI, but acknowledged they were still great smelting materials. And apparently that old man really had a story. Bang stared at the leader and said that if he could recognize its value, that saved him the trouble of explaining, since that was the prototype of the JYO series, enough to cover more than a year's rent in advance. The girl tried to stop him, saying that was his life's work, and reminding him that her brother would be back soon, that they only needed to wait a little longer. Bang looked at Zhao Xiao and said she was far too sentimental, but he knew what mattered. Her brother was never late, so something must have happened. Xiao Xiao tried to convince him otherwise, but he interrupted her, saying the decision was already made. The girl grew furious, saying that scoundrel was getting off too easily. Zeki looked at the old man and said he might be mistaken, as he never said that alone would be enough. Though the materials were rare, they were already partially processed, and considering disassembly, transport, and refinement, the real value dropped significantly. He used the system to recalculate and said that since it was already past midnight, it counted as a contract violation, resulting in a fine 10 times higher and double future rent. After deducting the robot's value, he stated the old man still owed 20 magic crystals. Bang asked what he was talking about, since the fine and doubled rent weren't in the contract. Zeki stepped closer, saying he should consider that new information since he needed to learn his place. After all, the weak had no say in that world. He stressed that the old man had only one day to come up with the rest and advised him to pray that his useless grandson returned in time. Otherwise, they'd be kindly sent to live among the monsters. The order was given to start hauling the goods, and the men began pulling cables, dismantling almost everything. Bang watched and apologized to his old friend, saying he had no choice. The scarred man complained that he hadn't made any profit that day and still had to work hard, but as he looked closer, he commented that maybe the electromagnetic components would fetch some money. Zhao Xiao shouted for him to stop, saying that wasn't part of the deal, but the man slapped her across the face and said he'd take whatever he wanted. She fell to the floor as they kept tugging at the cables. One of the men warned that was the last steel cable, and as it snapped, everyone screamed when they realized the robot was about to fall, right on top of Zhao Xiao, who was still lying down and too weak to move. Bang screamed, trying to reach her, but the girl, with the red mark of the slap on her forehead, could barely move and only screamed in fear. In that instant, the protagonist arrived using quick step and managed to pull her out of the robot's path just in time. He set her down, apologizing for being late, and asked if she was hurt, if the wound hurt. The girl kept crying, saying she didn't actually feel pain, only sadness for not being able to protect their home while he was gone, apologizing again. Wei Yi told her not to apologize, saying she had already done more than enough and did very well, but that now she could leave the rest to him. Zeki stared at him and said things were finally going to get easier, while the old man sighed in relief, thinking that was a good sign. The group began whispering, recognizing him as the curse trash, and someone remarked that his family still hadn't paid their debt, adding that if he knew what was good for them, he should hand over the magic crystals now, since no one wanted to use force. But if they had to, things would get much worse than before. Wei Yi just stared at them silently, and the man in front began to tremble, asking what he was looking at and feeling an inexplicable fear just from that gaze. The protagonist tells his sister to step back, warning her that things are about to get dangerous. She asks him to be careful with whatever he's about to do. Wei Yi activates universal analysis, scanning the stats of every man around him, still burning with anger as he realizes that most of them are nothing more than a bunch of rank E failures, who think they're powerful just because they have a bit of strength and the right to intimidate the weak. He grabs a bag and says that the magic crystals they want are all inside, but deep down he's thinking that this time they dared to hurt his sister, and that won't end easily. The man with the scar on his forehead walks up, mocking that at least the protagonist knows his place, since trash should stay trash. But as he gets close enough, he's suddenly struck by a devastating blow that shatters his jaw and knocks out a tooth. Wei Yi keeps attacking, saying that kick is for what he did to his sister, slamming him into the ground with a brutal strike. The others, startled, shout that the piece of trash is trying to mess with them and needs to be taught a lesson. But Wei Yi keeps advancing, appearing right in the middle of them, saying they should worry more about themselves before mocking others, and in an instant, he takes them all down. After defeating the 3 men at once, he turns his gaze to the big brute standing behind them. The giant flinches, asking if that kid wasn't supposed to be the lowest in the ranking and how he could have gotten so strong. Zeki tells Pang Ming that they've already wasted enough time there, apologizes to his boss, and begins to unleash his power, saying Wei Yi shouldn't think that beating a few thugs makes him strong. Now he'll learn what true power is. The status screen appears. Pang Ming, human, rank D8, strength 126, endurance 234 plus 324, spirit 24, elemental power 33, luck 87, speed 96. Skills: heavy core, armor level 2, innate quick speed, special innate block, no active state. Wei Yi dashes forward with incredible speed and kicks Pang Ming in the face, sending him flying while saying he's not allowed to cause trouble in the protagonist's home and needs to leave immediately. The man is thrown out with a single kick. His grandfather and sister are shocked, and she starts cheering, thrilled to see what her brother can do. Even the group's leader is surprised by Wei Yi's strength. Pang Ming, lying amid the garbage, rises in fury, surrounded by an aura that forms into an electric armor around his body. He admits the protagonist's speed is impressive, but says his strength is pathetic, and if that's all he's got, then this will be his end. LB releases a silver glow, activating elemental power that ignores most defenses, while universal analysis comes online. Wei Yi tells Pang Ming not to rush, saying the fight isn't over yet and that here all grudges, old and new, will be settled. Even without remembering the past, he frees himself from oppression and rises to seize the present. Wei Yi grips his broken sword while Pang Ming, fully covered in his electric armor, mocks him, asking if that shattered blade is supposed to be his strongest attack and calling it ridiculous. The leader watches and realizes his intuition was right. Pang Ming is a warrior with perfectly balanced attributes and shouldn't have been knocked back so easily. Perhaps that boy's attack is something different. Xiao Xiao shouts to her brother that if he can't win, they can still run away. Pang Ming starts laughing, convinced his enemy won't hold out, since even though he can't move well with his skill active, his defense is at its peak, and if the opponent attacks him directly, he'll be stunned. Then he'll make him taste real pain. The system identifies the skill Heavy Core Armor. When the defense is activated, endurance doubles, but movement speed drops by 90%. The first attacker to touch the armor is stunned for 3 seconds, and subsequent contacts reduce that effect to 0.25 seconds. Wei Yi acknowledges it's a good plan, but says he never intended to fight hand-to-hand. Wrapping his broken sword in silver light, he prepares for battle. Pang Ming, annoyed, shouts why he isn't playing by the rules. Then Wei Yi begins his assault, launching the first blade of light. With reduced speed, Pang Ming tries to block but quickly realizes something's wrong. The pain pierces through him, his armor isn't working, and he wonders what's happening. He realizes that with such power, Wei Yi shouldn't be able to repeat the strike many times. But as he looks ahead, horror fills his face. Countless blades of light are flying straight toward him. He screams, disbelieving that Wei Yi can still unleash all that. With no way to escape, Pang Ming could only endure while LB continued analyzing the heavy core armor, finally managing to identify its nuclear elements. The protagonist kept attacking, thinking this was expected. After all, the system could even analyze and learn the abilities of awakened individuals. LB initiated a deeper analysis, and Wei Yi noticed that, by maintaining a constant assault, the elements kept reconstructing themselves, which increased the tracking accuracy, making it perfect for the system to identify the elemental trajectories. LB then notified him that it had acquired new information on the nuclear element's star map, and now had a deeper understanding, beginning to load and learn the conditions of the heavy core armor. The skills had been assimilated. Pang Ming kept getting hit and, filled with rage, realized his armor had no effect at all. He completely dissolved it, declaring that it was better to attack directly now. He said that if he could just get close to that annoying brat, the fight would be over in an instant. Wei Yi recognized the perfect moment to act, having found an opening. He infused silver light into his broken sword, compressing elemental power along its edge, greatly amplifying its penetration force, thinking that no matter what happened, this strike would be devastating. The warrior realized that if he were hit, it would be the end. but there was no time to dodge. Just then, Zeki stepped in, shouting for them to stop, declaring the farce was over, and caught the protagonist's blade with his bare hands, saving his last subordinate. As he gripped the sword, he felt something strange and thought that his suspicions were right. The elemental damage and lightning power were incredible, maintaining tremendous strength even detached from their owner. The leader couldn't understand how that boy had acquired such abilities. Zeki snapped the blade in half with his hands and ordered Pang Ming to retreat immediately, saying he was no match for his opponent. The warrior tried to argue that he could still fight, but the leader sharply rebuked him, making it clear he wouldn't repeat himself. Wei Yi was taken aback to realize the leader was on a completely different level. His movements were so fast that even universal analysis couldn't keep up, capturing only fragmented data. Using the analysis again, he discovered Zeki possessed the ability Dangerous Intuition. Zeki noticed something and asked if the boy was trying to spy on him. The status screen appeared. Zeki, human, assassin class, level B1, strength 270 plus 36, speed 390 plus 228, luck 90, endurance 100, spirit 70, element 80 plus 216, extra points 0, skills, thorned vines level 3, poison infusion level 2, innate backstab, innate end of dawn, special state, dangerous intuition, an ability gained through extreme peril that grants an early warning against harmful factors. Annoyed, Zeki demanded to know what Wei Yi had seen and whether he had just witnessed him kill everyone there. The protagonist was shocked and angered, realizing the opponent had actually reacted to universal analysis, but he also saw that Zeki's stats were far beyond what he could handle. The old man told his granddaughter to stay behind him, and Wei Yi thought that if things kept going this way, he'd have no choice left. He began releasing the power of hell once again, and the system warned that the demonic energy was unstable, with LB trying to intervene but failing. Wei Yi glared at the leader, his eyes darkening, and coldly said that if he dared harm his family, he would face something no one should ever witness. Zeki felt the protagonist's aura shift completely, and his dangerous intuition reacted in panic, consumed by terror. The leader started to question the boy's origin. How could someone like him, a rank B, actually feel fear? Yet his intuition never failed him, which made him doubt whether he could even win. Suddenly, someone shouted for them to wait, yelling at a dog not to eat that and to give it back right now. Jojo came running after the animal, which had a crystal in its mouth, shouting nonstop until he finally managed to grab it. The crystal rolled across the floor and stopped right at Zeki's feet. Zeki froze in surprise when he saw what that crystal really was. Wei Yi returned to normal upon sensing his friend's presence, and Xiao Xiao cheered excitedly to see someone else arrive. The protagonist smiled in relief, happy that Jojo had also made it out of the misty forest safely. Annoyed, Jojo complained that he would have arrived much sooner if not for that stupid dog stealing his magic crystal along the way, looking around to see where it had fallen. Zeki, already holding the crystal in his hand, asked where they had gotten it. Jojo replied that he had dropped it by accident and explained that magic crystals above the intermediate level come from bosses, so Zeki should return it to its rightful owner. Wei Yi confirmed, saying that the crystal belonged to a boss known as the Silver Fang Wolf King, and that on their way back they were ambushed, which was why the rent payment had been delayed. Furious, Pang Ming shouted that this had to be a joke. There was no way just the two of them could have defeated a boss. Jojo shot back that he was right because the boss hadn't been defeated by both of them, but by Wei Yi alone. Zeki began to think, realizing his intuition had been correct. If they had truly managed to kill a boss, then Wei Yi's strength had to be at least rank C. He also thought that if he continued fighting and got injured, it could compromise his main plan. Besides, his magic crystal shield also required intermediate crystals to recharge. Zeki tossed a paper toward the protagonist, saying he should consider himself lucky to walk away alive from that situation. The leader remarked that Wei Yi could use that intermediate crystal as payment for 3 months' rent and compensation. Since the contract was a standard magical contract, a type of agreement written with energy extracted from crystals, where breaking it would cause severe harm to the violator. Zeki then turned and ordered Pang Ming to carry the 4 other men as they were leaving immediately. The brute asked what about the robot, and the leader mocked him, asking if he really thought he could carry something that large. Meanwhile, the protagonist carefully read through the contract and saw that nothing was technically wrong, though he still felt suspicious about what Zeki might be plotting. Xiao Xiao mocked the brute as he struggled to lift his wounded companions. Zeki departed, thinking that he'd let Wei Yi go this time, but once his plan was complete, he'd have plenty of chances to finish the job. The protagonist watched and commented that it seemed they really were gone, relieved that at least this time they had managed to win without resorting to demonic power, avoiding losing control again. Xiao Xiao ran up to her brother, glowing with excitement, and asked when he had become so strong. Wei Yi laughed, saying maybe he'd just been really lucky these past few days and felt that the system must be close to leveling up. Jojo, taking advantage of the calm moment, called his friend over and showed all the materials and meat he had gathered, saying that everything belonged to Wei Yi and that all he wanted in return was a piece of the meat. The protagonist was amazed, unable to understand how his friend had carried so much weight alone. Jojo explained that the most precious material of all was that giant fang, the Silver Fang Wolf King's own tooth. Immediately, LB began analyzing it and confirmed, giant fang of the Silver Fang Wolf King, a rank D item with a sharp edge and high elemental conductivity, making it an excellent material for weapon crafting. Upon realizing this, Wei Yi thought he could use that material to maximize the Silver Light's effect and finally forge a new weapon worthy of his power. Meeting Zeki had made him realize just how lacking he still was. Beyond the obvious danger, he knew that to hold his own in that kind of situation, he'd have had to rely on his demonic power, risking losing control. That's why he decided he needed to grow stronger, because only then could he truly protect everything before him: his family, his friends, and most of all, his little sister. Xiao Xiao ran up to Jojo and asked if that meat was edible, to which he replied enthusiastically that if they grilled it, it would taste amazing and everyone should try it right away. Bang approached the protagonist and commented that all those materials were truly exceptional. The grandfather looked at his grandson and said he seemed different this time, that he must have gone through a lot on his journey. Wei Yi nodded, saying that indeed some people had even died, wondering if he should tell his grandfather everything that had happened. Suddenly, Bang mentioned that it seemed his grandson had met Lan Bao, leaving Wei Yi shocked. The old man looked him in the eyes and calmly said it was all right, because there were things he too needed to share. The embers glowed as the meat began to grill. Jojo grinned and called everyone over, shouting that the barbecue was ready. Xiao Xiao grabbed a few pieces of meat in her hands and argued with the dog, saying those were for her big brother and grandpa, and his share was already set aside so he shouldn't steal any. Jojo laughed, saying there was plenty for everyone, so there was no need to fight. The old man praised the aroma, saying the smell was truly wonderful, and the protagonist told his sister to eat more slowly. Xiao Xiao tasted a piece and was amazed, saying the barbecue was delicious, but soon she began to feel sleepy while eating. Wei Yi explained that it happened because she had eaten too much. As he adjusted the robot's position, the system analyzed the meat and displayed cooked meat of the Silver Fang Wolf King identified, 10 analysis experience points acquired. Magic beast meat currently delicious, but excessive consumption causes drowsiness. Bang looked around and commented that it had been a long time since they'd had such a happy meal. Wei Yi agreed, and the old man added that in all his life, he had never tasted anything so flavorful, noting how difficult it must have been to deal with that beast. A protective barrier was raised around the campsite. The protagonist explained that the battle had been fierce, but thanks to Lan Bao's power, he managed to win, though he needed to be cautious, as creation's interference in that world was stronger than he'd imagined. Sooner or later, it would turn its attention to that uncontrollable power. LB emitted an alert. Inaccessible activated, important information about Lan Bao concealed. Access denied. Wei Yi asked his grandfather if he already knew about Lan Bao, since he only understood half of the system, and wanted to know how to use that power to grow stronger and protect everyone, as well as find a way to restore Lan Bao. He also asked if his grandfather really believed it was possible to restore the world to what it once was. Bang placed a hand on his shoulder and said he was still a naive child, asking how they could stop now, when the gears of history had already begun to turn. He emphasized that creation hadn't destroyed everything completely. Looking back, he said that at least they were still there, his old companions with whom he had worked for over 20 years. The old man then began telling a story. When he first met the machine, it was merely a simple combat weapon, but after so many dangers and hardships faced together, they developed a bond, and the machine began to acquire human emotions. While JYO fought with all its might, it used to say it had to win so it could bring everyone home. The old man concluded that it was truly nostalgic, as the bond between human and machine had been engraved in his memories. And even though creation had destroyed its intelligent consciousness, he believed it hadn't vanished completely. With conviction, the old man went on to say he faithfully believed it would return in another form, because that was its destiny, the same destiny he had always believed in. Now he told his grandson that he too had his own path to follow, and urged him to trust his heart, for it would lead him in the right direction. LB then reported detecting an emotional fluctuation and attempting to understand it, but it couldn't identify what it was. Wei Yi was surprised to realize the system was trying to produce a new kind of reaction. LB kept analyzing the fluctuation, trying to comprehend it, but failed several times. The protagonist, intrigued, began wondering if that conversation with his grandfather had triggered some sort of resonance with the system. That stubbornness was just like when Lan Bao tried to learn new things. Wei Yi asked his grandfather if he knew whether Lan Bao had left anything behind, something called a world fragment. Bang replied that he'd never heard of that, but recalled that Once, Lan Bao mentioned leaving an important notebook in the old house, saying that when the protagonist had gained enough power, it would be time to tell him about it. The old man added that it seemed that time had now come. Wei Yi asked what kind of notebook it was, but his grandfather only told him to go there and see for himself, assuring him he would find the answers he was looking for. He thought this came at the perfect time, as the day he was meant to make that visit had finally arrived. Besides, he also planned to visit his father and mother. The night passed, and the next day, Wei Yi strapped on two 30-kilogram wrist weights for training. The system informed him that the total weight was 100 kilograms. He completed a 20-kilometer run, 200 sit-ups, and 200 push-ups. He thought that with universal analysis running automatically, he had managed to reach level E6. However, as his level increased, the experience required grew as well, meaning his progress would be slower from now on. For that reason, he decided his free attribute points had to be distributed carefully. The Silver Light bonus was more advantageous than simply adding brute strength, and with LB, he could learn new elemental abilities, so he resolved to continue strengthening his elemental power. Once he finished training, he decided to head to the Star Machine City Market to buy supplements. As he ran through the streets, his uncle spotted him and asked if he was already training again so early in the morning. Wei Yi greeted him with a good morning and confirmed it. That market was run by ordinary people, a place where one could find anything, animal materials, medicine, food, and anyone could trade as long as they had enough magic crystals. The protagonist checked the map and saw that the entrance to the old house was still far away, meaning he'd need to cross the misty forest. He thought he should buy enough food and supplies to endure the trip, as well as his Aunt Alan's favorite honey cake. Suddenly, a man called out to him, saying it had been a while since he'd last seen him, and asking if he'd had any trouble with beasts. The man tried to sell him some ugly dolls, claiming they repelled monsters and cost only one basic magic crystal. The system analyzed the item and reported that there was a legend about dolls that could ward off low-level monsters, but the real effect could only be confirmed through use. Wei Yi hesitated, unsure whether to believe it or not. Then, chaos broke out in the middle of the market. People were shouting to catch a thief. A hooded figure darted through the crowd at high speed, apologizing and asking to pass as they dodged through people. Wei Yi was impressed by the speed and wondered if that person was an awakened one. A woman cried out desperately that those were her goods, and that if she lost them, she wouldn't be able to pay rent that month. He recognized the voice. It was his Aunt Alan. Without a second thought, he tore off his weighted bracelets and dashed after the thief, shouting that he would help catch them. The fleeing person glanced back, surprised, thinking she had already lost her pursuers, but Wei Yi was closing in fast, yelling for her to stop immediately and return what she stole from his Aunt Alan. The thief laughed arrogantly, saying that when it came to running away, she was a professional. Then she fired a grappling claw from a device, hitting the frame of a nearby stall and collapsing it over the protagonist. Wei Yi grew annoyed as he pushed his way out from under the tarp, realizing she had escaped using the hook. He activated LB and ordered it to expand the scan radius around the area. The system confirmed the command and began scanning every inch nearby. On top of a nearby building, the thief ran swiftly, thinking she was safe, but the scan managed to locate her. She celebrated, saying that free food was the best thing in the world, and that this would be another day of savings, though she knew the item still had ownership marks and couldn't be stored in her inventory box. Suddenly, her wristwatch beeped with a warning. She was near her destination and needed to move discreetly. At the edge of the building, she decided it was time to descend. Meanwhile, on the ground, Wei Yi followed the signal, with the system notifying him that the target was only 5 meters away. The thief leapt from the building, but Wei Yi had already predicted her route and intercepted her, appearing directly in her path. Startled, she asked how he managed to get there so fast. Wei Yi remembered she still had the grappling hook and stayed alert, watching for her next move. As expected, the woman tried to use the hook again to change direction, but he used Quick Step, grabbed the cable, and yanked it hard, telling her that the same trick wouldn't work twice and demanding she return and apologize to his Aunt Alan. The girl lost her balance and started falling, screaming that the hook had gone out of control and that they were both going to crash. When her hood came off, the protagonist was stunned by her face, a young woman with delicate features and striking eyes. She admitted defeat, saying he'd caught her, but he was still shocked by how beautiful the thief was. The two fell together and she landed on top of him. Flustered, Wei Yi asked how long she planned to stay like that, and the girl smirked teasingly, saying a simple hug wouldn't kill him. Besides, he was the one who pulled her down. The protagonist grew irritated, thinking her attitude was odd, as she now acted like the victim. She quickly stood up and started to leave, saying that he'd won this time, and that she wouldn't bother him again, but he grabbed her cloak, saying she wasn't going anywhere, and had to come back to apologize to his aunt. The girl was startled and tried to pull away, but with his strength, the cloak slipped off, revealing a strange mark on her neck. The system immediately reacted. Toxic substances detected. Suspected beast venom. Wei Yi grew alarmed and asked if the wound on her neck was caused by poison. Annoyed, she tried to snatch her coat back, demanding he return it, but he insisted, stepping closer with a serious look. He explained that he knew what it was because he'd been poisoned by a beast before, and warned her that her wound was still in the incubation stage. Once the poison spread, she could die. He asked why she hadn't sought treatment. Embarrassed and trembling, the girl confessed that she didn't have the magic crystals to afford treatment like that. Looking down at the bread that had fallen to the ground, she murmured that if she had enough magic crystals, she wouldn't have to worry about simply surviving. Then she bent down, picked up the dirty bread, and with a bitter smile said that even a simple piece of bread was something she couldn't afford, let alone a cure for the poison that was slowly killing her. She explained that she had believed that by becoming an awakened, she would finally be accepted into an adventurer team, but everyone rejected her, saying her attack power was too low. Wei Yi stayed silent, a little saddened, as the system carried out its analysis. He realized the girl was telling the truth, since as an assassin, her attributes weren't suited for combat. Her level was also low, so she had no choice but to turn to theft to survive. The system finished scanning and displayed. Name Yuxi, class assassin. F1, strength 2, endurance 12, spirit 24, elemental power 8, luck 54, speed, no extra attributes, skills 0. Innate skill, violent backstab, special status, poisoned. With tears in her eyes, she kept cleaning the bread and told him he didn't have to bother, that living one more day was enough. She added that in any case, she saw no hope in the future, so if he wanted to turn her in, he could. Moved by her situation, Wei Yi thought she didn't seem like a bad person at all. He told her she didn't need to be so desperate, remembering that he too had gone through the same thing and knew how hard it was for someone at rank F to survive in that world. After all, awakened ones who committed crimes were punished harshly. She was simply struggling to survive. Since he still had enough crystals for the time being, he decided to help her. The protagonist took out his crystal pouch and said he'd explain everything to Aunt Alan as long as the girl promised not to steal anymore. If she did that, he'd let her go. He handed her a few crystals, saying they weren't much but should help treat the poison. The girl burst into tears of joy, repeating over and over that she promised she'd never do it again, thanking him nonstop. Suddenly, people started calling out for the protagonist, asking where he was because they'd come to help. He shouted that he was in the alley. Taking advantage of the distraction, Yuxi fired her grappling hook and swiftly climbed upward. Wei Yi turned and told her that if she wanted to leave, she should do it now, but when he looked back, she was already gone. He was astonished, thinking her escape speed was faster than a rabbit's. Returning to the market, he felt oddly deceived, something that left him confused. The doll vendor commented that something was off because one of his dolls was pointing to the side, even though no one was there. Aunt Alan took the package from his hands, happily thanking him and saying that the honey cakes for the Split Bear Guild were all there, the last batch Zeki had ordered, and if she had lost them, she would have been in trouble. Wei Yi grew suspicious, wondering if Zeki might have some connection to that girl. Meanwhile, from afar, high atop a statue, Yuxi watched everything while holding the pouch of magic crystals. She smiled and remarked that simple men were easy to fool, just a few tricks, and they believed anything she said. Even though the goods were gone, she'd already obtained the information she needed and the crystals were just a bonus. Then she said, "Light mist effect, cancel," and her status panel restored. The poisoning disappeared. Her system completely changed. Name, Zixi. Codename, Black Raven. Race, human. Class, assassin. C6. Strength 8. Endurance 48. Spirit 96 plus 24. Elemental power 32. Luck 216 plus 216. Speed 400 plus 180. Extra points 0. Skills: Light Mist, LV.3, Violent Backstab, Innate, Forget Worries, and Treasure Sense. Skill descriptions: Light Mist can cover surfaces with a user-defined camouflage, making them indistinguishable from reality. At level 3, it allows temporary alteration of the system panel, consuming a small amount of elemental power during its duration. Forget Worries reduces negative emotions and hostility detected by others, decreasing detection accuracy. She remained puzzled, wondering how the protagonist had managed to track her. Did he have some kind of detection ability? But she had investigated everyone in that city who possessed such skills and hadn't found anyone like him. Suddenly, her watch beeped, alerting her to an incoming mysterious call. She nearly jumped in fright, realizing the boss was contacting her. He ordered her to report her mission progress. Zixi replied that she was already within the Split Bear Guild's territory, but there were still no traces of the contraband crystal energy device. Perhaps the target was deliberately covering their tracks. The boss asked if she was talking about the mission target. Zixi kept watching and confirmed that Zeki was inspecting the goods at that very moment, so there was no chance to act. The boss then asked what goods she was referring to. Black Raven replied that she had already confirmed it. They were all honey cakes. Zeki had monopolized every honey cake in the city, and shipments were constantly being transported to the Misty Forest, with laborers gathering there as well. She pointed out that something important had to be happening, but the boss snapped that he didn't care about the cakes. The only thing he wanted was proof of Zeki's crystal energy smuggling, and she had better keep watch, or she already knew the consequences of failure. Slightly uneasy, she said she understood and continued her surveillance. Elsewhere in the city, the protagonist walked along, commenting that in the end, his aunt still gave him 2 honey cakes for free. Still, he couldn't understand why the Split Bear Guild needed so many honey cakes. There was no way they were all that obsessed with sweets. On top of that, his uncle said that Ugly Doll was destined for him and simply handed it over, though the protagonist still had no idea what it was for. He arrived at the door thinking maybe Maba Hiaoshi would like it, but quickly changed his mind. He had no time to waste and needed to prepare for departure. Opening the door, he called out that he was back, only for Zhao Xiao to storm in, furious, asking how he dared to go without taking them along. She went on, saying that their grandfather told her the protagonist was planning to go alone to the misty forest and the old house, and she declared that she wanted to go too. Zhou was also upset, reminding him that they had agreed to be partners. So why was he acting alone? Besides, the ruins of the old city lay deep within the misty forest, the old house as well, and the journey would take at least 3 days full of danger. Wei Yi told Zhou not to worry, explaining that he'd already bought all the essential supplies and handed a gift to his sister. She lit up when she saw it was a honey cake. The protagonist continued saying that as for the danger, he knew the area well and had been there several times before. Originally, this was his problem alone and he didn't want to drag the two of them into it. Both of them started shouting at him, insisting that wasn't true and that they were coming no matter what. Seeing there was no way to talk them out of it, he agreed, admitting that in the end, having more people was actually better for watching each other's backs. Meanwhile, their grandfather kept working on an item. The old man said that on top of everything else, the new weapon still needed time to be completed. After all, the better the material, the harder it was to forge. And those components had been prepared with care. Still, he said his grandson couldn't enter the misty forest without a decent weapon and tossed him a hammer. Bang remarked that the protagonist had always helped him with repairs since he was a child, so that tools should be useful for something. Wei Yi looked confused, thinking it was just a repair hammer, but his grandfather had reinforced it. The system analyzed and confirmed. Indeed, it was a ranked repair hammer, designed for fixing metal tools. Its main feature was durability, but it had been reinforced to provide greater striking power. Bang asked his grandson to send greetings on his behalf, and Zhou smiled, saying they were ready and just waiting for the protagonist. His sister told the dog to stay behind with Grandpa to protect the house. Wei Yi took a deep breath, a smile forming on his face, admitting that he really couldn't say no to them. Taking the lead, he called the two and announced it was time to set out. He marked the entire route on the map from start to finish, and then they began their journey. Meanwhile, deep within the misty forest, something strange was happening. A violent storm raged. Countless monsters lay dead as even more terrifying creatures devoured them. There were many entrances to the misty forest, and the protagonist, his sister, and his friend had chosen the one farthest from the city, moving toward the forest center in search of the ancient ruins. To reduce the risks of lingering in dangerous zones, travelers usually picked the entry closest to their destination, and the safe path Wei Yi had mentioned was precisely that one, making it the ideal route. However, safe only meant fewer monsters. The environmental hazards remained unavoidable. The uneven terrain made the journey anything but peaceful, but fortunately they encountered no major danger, and after more than a day of travel, arrived on the morning of the second day. Looking to the side, Wei Yi remarked that they had finally arrived. The system notified that the accumulated automatic experience was complete, and he advanced to level E7. Everyone stood in awe before the ruins of the ancient city. Zhao Xiao gazed in wonder, saying it felt like the entire city was spread out before them. The protagonist agreed, remembering that all of it was the result of the great destruction caused by the creator back then, and that the old house was still farther ahead, so they needed to keep going. Zhou looked out toward the field where he used to play soccer as a child and wondered how it had become so ruined. Everything felt both familiar and foreign at once. Wei Yi nodded, saying that unfortunately they couldn't return to the past. His friend called out for him to look ahead, pointing toward the park's fountain. The system detected that the fountain's mechanism was malfunctioning and awarded the protagonist 10 experience points. Zhou recalled that back then, some kids had bullied Wei Yi, and he had almost drowned. It was Lan Bao who saved him for the first time. As he remembered that moment, the protagonist froze, reliving the image of his friend in his mind. After he had entered that memory, Lan Bao had never responded again. But even so, Wei Yi felt a strong intuition that this time, he would manage to awaken him. Zhao Xiao commented that her older brother and Lan Bao seemed to share memories connected to that place, and she wished she could feel that too. LB tried to process the emotion, but the system reported that emotional interpretation had failed. Wei Yi smiled, wondering what exactly LB was trying to understand. Zhou, deep in thought, mentioned that The creator had been so powerful that he destroyed every intelligent machine, and it was incredible that Lan Bao had somehow escaped. He asked how that could have happened. LB replied that access was denied as Lan Bao's core information was hidden. The protagonist reflected that it might be because the creator and Lan Bao shared similar systems, since their parents had likely foreseen the creator's ambition and created Lan Bao to counter it, sending him to Wei Yi. Zhou was astonished and intrigued. Having a system similar to the creator's was truly something extraordinary. If Lan Bao could be revived, perhaps he could stand against the creator one day, or even change the world. Wei Yi said that was still uncertain, but that this was exactly why they had come, to search for more clues. Maybe, as his grandfather had said, this was the mission he was destined to complete. Zhou admitted, a little embarrassed, that he felt envious of the protagonist since Wei Yi always moved forward with purpose, while he himself didn't even know what he was searching for, let alone his true mission. He said he was like his father, who had made him study business from childhood to inherit the family shop, but he had never liked it. Still, he worked hard to meet expectations. Later, when the world changed, he became an awakened, almost by accident, joined the Meteor Guild, and met the protagonist, slowly realizing he liked that kind of life much more. Always moving forward with his shield, he said he felt a strange thrill whenever he protected others. It made him feel needed. He asked Wei Yi if maybe that feeling was what he'd been looking for all along. The protagonist replied that he believed everything had a purpose, and that Zhou was there because he could fight without holding back. Xiao shouted that people who protect others are amazing too. Zhou laughed, feeling better, and said he liked hearing that, promising he would do everything he could to protect everyone. Suddenly, they heard a strange sound and a thick fog began to spread. The protagonist frowned, asking when it had gotten so dense, and the three of them immediately prepared for battle. Wei Yi told his sister to stay between them, as something was wrong with that mist. Activating the all-seeing analysis, he could spot creatures moving beneath the water among the ruins. The system identified them. Fishman hunters, common monsters of Class D, 1 to D3, strength between 180 and 188, endurance 96, spirit between 168 and 176, elemental power 87, luck 48, speed between 201 and 209. Suddenly, the monsters burst from the water, ready to ambush. The protagonist shouted that they were fishman hunters and ordered Zhou to protect his sister. Zhou immediately stepped in front of her and told him to leave it to him. The protagonist analyzed the situation and noted that there were 6 enemies, scattered and distant. He was lucky to have the all-seeing analysis panel, which allowed him to predict their positions. Then, without realizing what happened, he was struck and asked himself when that attack had been launched. The system identified a puncture wound in his shoulder. The water churned violently, and sensing another strike coming, he threw his bag backward. Zhou and Xiao cried out in concern, asking if he was okay. Wei Yi answered that he was fine, saying it was just a scratch. He focused again, realizing there was only one attack notification but no visible trajectory, which confused him. The main bodies were still far away. He wondered if this could be some kind of special ability, and decided that he'd have to attack directly to find out. He activated the silver light, enveloping the hammer, and asked the system to analyze the elemental power in real time. One of the monsters lunged toward him. Without hesitation, he swung the hammer, but realized too late that it was only an illusion. LB warned that an attack was coming from above. The protagonist dodged on instinct, and at that instant, he finally understood what was happening. Meanwhile, at the Split Bear Guild headquarters, several members were chatting, asking if the others had seen that the bait had actually managed to attract that bear. They said there was no reason to be afraid. After all, they were in the guild, and this time was different. Many of them had been so terrified after seeing the creature that they hadn't been able to get out of bed for days. One of them asked if it was really that dangerous. He'd faced some things before, but admitted the guild was short on people lately and had needed to recruit new members. The veteran told the rookie to quit stalling and get moving, and the boy, with a disguised appearance, smirked slightly, thinking she'd just overheard something interesting. Continuing her work under disguise, she analyzed the surroundings and realized that the room she was in was Zeki's own, and that soon she'd uncover all his secrets. Inside the room, the guild leader sat silently, gazing at a photo of his brother, murmuring that the time had finally come. It was thanks to his brother's help in the past that he'd managed to get his hands on that crystal energy device, and because of that artifact, the guild had become powerful enough to dominate the city. If that creature hadn't appeared, he would have shared all that success with his brother. Zeki said that now that he'd gathered enough power, it was time to avenge what happened in the past, and this time, he would make sure that thing was destroyed piece by piece. Pang Ming burst into the room, shouting that there was news. Zhong Tianyu wouldn't be coming anymore. He'd left a voice message that had to be delivered to the boss personally. Zeki told him to play it. The message started, "Hey Zeki, I don't have time for the mission. Xiaomei's birthday is in a few days, and being the good man I am, of course I have to go." Suddenly, another voice interrupted, asking where his hands were going. Zheng Tianyu resumed, apologizing and saying that over the next few days, Tem Kir, Zhao Chun, Zhao Guo, and some others would be asking him to spend time with them. "Man, they say you're super charming. Doesn't that ever get exhausting? Anyway, let's postpone the mission to next month, okay? It's not like you'll find someone better than me, right? Don't forget to send next month's payment to my account in advance." The moment the recording ended, Zeki smashed the table in half with a single strike, growling that the arrogant fool only wanted to take the money and run. If the Star Driller hadn't proven useful for causing large-scale elemental damage, why should he keep putting up with that kind of nonsense? Furious, Zeki admitted that, despite everything, Zhang Tianyu's role on the team was replaceable, and maybe it was time to move on without him. Pang Ming picked up the shattered pieces from the floor and asked what they should do next, and whether the others should be notified about the delay. He also reminded his boss that the intermediate magic crystal couldn't just be left lying around, since if it exploded by accident, the energy released could destroy the entire building. At that, an idea sparked in Zeki's mind. He didn't need that idiot. There was another option right in front of him. He turned to Pang Ming, a dark grin spreading across his face, and said the plan would proceed exactly as scheduled. But first, they needed to find someone. He watches as the monsters circle around, forming new water clones, realizing they can create another phantom extremely fast. But now that he understands the trick, everything becomes simple. He raises the hammer, thinking that the Fishman Hunter's ability must be cloud type, and that the silver light, being electrical, is perfect against it. He then strikes the water and releases a current that spreads around, electrocuting everyone hiding beneath the surface. Zhou Zhou and Xiao Xiao are impressed to see all the enemies appear at once. And even though they try to retreat, the monsters stand no chance when the Proto appears behind one of them, and comments that it is already too late, defeating it with ease. The system announces that the enemy has been eliminated and he receives 800 experience points. But other monsters are already advancing. LB informs him that it has gained a new understanding from the trajectory of the Cloud Element star map, and that this allows a better grasp of the Waterlight Phantom structure, starting a deep analysis. Shortly after, LB concludes that it has reached enough understanding to complement the host's learning and activate the necessary conditions for the Waterlight Phantom. Wei Yi celebrates the perfect moment, realizing that the silver light reacts differently depending on the weapon used, and that the hammer produces shock waves. The system confirms that he has learned the Waterlight Phantom, and he thinks this technique is truly excellent. LB explains that this cloud-type ability temporarily creates a phantom identical to the user while the real body becomes invisible, and the phantom obeys commands to confuse the enemy. Under sunlight, it lasts about 10 seconds, but in the rain, it can be maintained indefinitely, with a medium elemental cost to cast and almost nothing to sustain. Wei Yi considers that although it is a common monster ability, the invisibility effect has huge potential, and notices that his friend is likely having trouble because he cannot distinguish the real fishman, so he decides to hurry. A sudden attack forces him to dodge, and he notices that the enemies abandoned melee and switched to long-range attacks, something common among higher-ranking monsters. Seeing this as the ideal chance to test his new ability, he creates a clone and vanishes. The monsters also pressure Xiao Xiao and Zhou Zhou, but he states they will need much more to break his star shield and keeps protecting the two. Even so, he starts getting irritated, saying those attacks seem endless. Xiao Xiao asks him to hold on a little longer because her brother should arrive any moment, while Zhou Zhou says they cannot depend only on Wei Yi, and that they also need to learn how to fight, remembering that those creatures cannot maintain their elemental power for very long. He tells Xiao Xiao to stay close to him because they intend to finish everything right there, and she celebrates, not noticing the monster emerging behind her. The creature lunges, but the pendant attached to her bag detects the attack and emits a scream that stuns the enemy. The three of them are surprised, and the monster quickly recovers. Outraged that it attacked his sister, the Proto charges in fury, saying the enemy seems in a hurry to die, and smashes it against the ground with the hammer without mercy. Wei Yi is surprised because he did not believe that the ugly frog from the shop was actually useful, and apparently, he will have to visit that shop again from now on. LB warns that the Proto's level has increased to E9. Zhou Zhou also eliminates the monsters around him. He looks around and says that it seems the battle is over since all the monsters are already down. The system notifies him that the experience requirements for E10 have been met, and with that he reaches rank D1. He celebrates, happy for leveling up. Wei Yi congratulates him for evolving. Zhou Zhou starts laughing, saying that if he had not leveled up now, the Proto might have caught up to him, and he does not want to fall behind. Xiao Xiao picks up a twig and starts poking the monster, saying it is a bad fishman, and that is what it gets for hurting people. Now it got what it deserved. Wei Yi notices the mist dissipating and says they should collect the magic crystals and keep moving. Jojo starts searching for the crystals, asking the Prota if he knew they might find a treasure. Wei Yi is a bit confused by this story, and his friend begins explaining that this is because fishman hunters can drop the rare material called fishman tear. He points out that his father told him this works as money, and that they can even exchange it for S-class equipment at the Ringstar City exchange pouch. But it seems these ones only have some magic crystals and some common equipment. Wei Yi asks what a fish tear does. Jojo says he does not know the exact details because it only appeared on the market once or twice. He keeps searching but cannot find anything, so maybe they were not that lucky. Xiao Xiao, who was poking the dead monsters, notices something beautiful and shiny on one of their heads. She picks it up and calls the two of them, asking them to look at what she found because it feels fresh to the touch. They are both shocked, unable to believe it. She managed to get two at once, and her luck is extremely high. The system identifies that fishman tear as an A-class material and says that holding it in the mouth can remove all negative poison-type effects and greatly accelerate the recovery of elemental power. She asks if they want it for themselves. After gathering everything, they continue advancing along the path through the forest. Wei Yi becomes a little sentimental, thinking that a long time has passed and that this is a piece of his past. His sister is also impressed by how beautiful it is, and Jojo says that apparently the place has not changed at all. Wei Yi notices that ever since he arrived there, LB has been sending constant notifications, saying it sensed a special energy. Traces and a world fragment have been detected. The Prota is shocked once again, realizing he was truly right. The world fragment has finally arrived. He keeps looking at his old home and thinks that even if the fragment is nearby, there is still something more important he needs to do first. They go to the back of the house to visit his parents' grave. He takes the bouquet of flowers he brought and tells his father and mother that he finally came to visit them. He apologizes for the delay, saying he has learned a lot and since then has been including the secret between Lan Bao and the creator, which shows how many incredible things they accomplished. He mentions that unfortunately Grandpa could not visit them this time, but he misses them very much. He also says he is not there alone. Jojo and his little sister Xiao Xiao are also there, and he calls his sister to say hi to their mother and father. She grips her bag tightly and walks closer, asking her brother to wait because she brought a present for their mom and dad. She flips her bag upside down, dropping several things onto the ground, and kneeling down, she starts picking all her belongings to place them beside the grave, saying these are all her favorite things, and therefore she hopes their mom and dad will like them too. She states she is very happy to be part of that family, happy to have met her brother and her grandpa. However, she also has some worries. Xiao Xiao asks whether, if she tells a secret, their mom and dad will be able to hear it. While she talks to their parents, Wei Yi and Jojo step aside a bit. Then Jojo asks the Prota whether Uncle Luo and Aunt Luo passed away a little after his and Xiao Xiao's birth and where Xiao Xiao came from. Wei Yi is a bit surprised by the question and tries to explain, saying that his sister is actually an orphan who survived the intelligent destruction. Jojo is shocked to learn this and says he now understands why their hair colors are different. The Prota says the place where they found her is not far from there. He explains he never forgets that day when all the robots and AIs went insane. The city came to a complete stop, paralyzed by chaos. The inhabitants fled desperately to survive, but those who could not escape were left behind, including some children. And it was in the ruins of that destruction that he and his grandfather found his sister. Jojo asks if that was when they adopted her, and the Prota confirms it. He says that even though they treated her as family all her life, she feels she always owes them something and hopes to help them in some way someday. LB keeps notifying that special energy has been detected, traces of the world fragment found. Wei Yi thinks the system is reacting non-stop, and that maybe it is time to find this fragment. He asks LB to analyze the target location quickly, and LB says the command has been received and the exact coordinates of the target have been located. He starts entering the house and tells Jojo he will leave his sister with him because he needs to find what Lan Bao left behind. Upon entering the house, he is surprised, saying the place has not changed at all. The system notifies again, saying that an energy signature is growing stronger and that the world fragment has been detected nearby. Wei Yi begins looking around, thinking that when he was little he used to collect all his favorite things, filling that shelf just like his sister does today. He notices there is a box near him and decides to open it to see what is inside. When he opens it, he realizes it is Lan Bao's diary. The LB system says the target has been acquired, and the Prota opens the diary, thinking he vaguely remembers how, when he was very young, Lan Bao used to write in his journal every day about taking care of him. He starts flipping through it, wondering if what Lan Bao left behind is inside. Suddenly, the system says identity confirmation has been completed, and he is now accessing World 7. A massive amount of energy begins pouring out from the book, and LB says World 7 is loading. Access denied activated. Darkness takes over the place, and suddenly, the Prota begins to see something and is shocked. Several images of Lan Bao caring for him and playing with him when he was just a child appear before him. He realizes that the diary scenes have materialized. Everything is there, as if they had gone back in time. Lan Bao says he needs to learn quickly how he should smile and comes closer, thinking that all of his emotional capacities truly were not innate. The child Prota starts laughing, and Lan Bao realizes that is a compliment, acknowledging he smiles well. The LB system begins notifying that an emotion factor has been generated in the fragment. Emotion recorded, joy, emotion deduction initiated. Wei Yi starts to understand because all of that is the world fragment. The system continues notifying emotion recorded, sadness, emotion recorded, surprise, fear, anger, pride, shyness. All those emotions begin merging. The Prota starts running, thinking the world fragment is continuously absorbing the emotions Lan Bao produced, and therefore he needs to try using the LB system to analyze the world fragment. After receiving the command, the system begins trying to analyze the fragment. Suddenly, red warnings appear saying that once started, the analysis cannot be interrupted, and that he will be affected by the force of the rule. Wei Yi is confused, asking what the force of the rule is and what is happening there. Progress in emotion comprehension is at 37%. Progress in emotion expression is at 39%, and progress in emotion deduction is at 21%. More red warnings appear saying LB's comprehension has reached its limit and additional factors are needed for an upgrade. Now the system will extract factors from the current space. The current space is about to collapse due to LB's interference with world rules, and the host will be subjected to the effects of the rule force. Wei Yi becomes frightened, saying Lan Bao mentioned the rule force once and that it is a power from outside the world. Even the space itself is being distorted, and he realizes there is nowhere to run at that moment. The system warns in red again, saying that under the influence of rule force, the space is undergoing entropy reduction. That strange energy begins striking the Prota's body, disfiguring him and making him scream in pain, so much that he starts to wonder if he really will die there. A colossal column of power begins emanating from inside the house, piercing the sky. Zhou is startled, asking if his friend is in some kind of danger in there. Xiao Xiao becomes worried as well, calling out for her brother. That strange force begins taking the Prota's shape. LB notifies that it is detecting the rule force effect on the host, and that the central information library will now run automatically. Intensity 1. Absorption possible. Wei Yi realizes the distortion and the pain vanish suddenly and understands that the central information library was something Lan Bao gave him, and because of that, his friend saved him again. The system continues notifying, saying the upgrade was completed successfully and LB's comprehension ability has been greatly enhanced. With that, he has gained a deeper understanding of emotions. Emotion comprehension progress, 100%. Emotion expression progress, 100%. Emotion deduction progress, 100%. The fragment of World 7 has been completely analyzed and stored in the core information library. The ability Omniscient Analysis has been upgraded from level 1 to level 2 and can now analyze more content. The energy keeps floating in his chest, and the Prota asks if he is back. The system says a large amount of experience was gained by successfully analyzing the World 7 fragment, and his level has increased. Current level D1. The World 7 fragment disappeared, returning to the real world. The designation LB produced a slight feeling of repulsion and asks whether the host wants to give it a new name. The Prota thinks he already had a name specially chosen for him from the beginning. He begins to wake up and sees Zhou completely desperate but happy that he has awakened. His sister asks if he is okay. The Prota, still confused by the situation, asks if he really fainted and how the two of them ended up there. Zhou explains that there was a strong fluctuation of energy in the house a short while ago, and that is why they ran in to check if everything was all right. His sister says that as soon as they came in, they saw him unconscious and asks again if he had been in danger. Wei Yi says that is not exactly the case, but he feels that something inside him has changed a little. Zhou is confused and asks what he means, but Wei Yi inside thinks he would like to know what the system is like now after the update and therefore needs to check it immediately. Suddenly, the system notifies that Lan Bao sensed his master's curiosity and took the liberty of opening the system panel. The Prota is happy, thinking the old name really suited the system better. Lan Bao senses his happiness and likes the current name very much, so the Prota welcomes his friend Lan Bao back. With a smiling face, he thinks that although this is only the first step, it is still a pleasure to meet his friend again. But even so, seeing the progress displayed on the interface, he notices there are still 7 other fragments to collect, even though he does not know where to look for them. Lan Bao tells his master not to worry because the fragments are attracted to each other, and he made a deduction discovering that the next fragment will appear very soon. Zhou calls Wei Yi, saying he has been staring into nothing for quite a while and asks whether he found something in common. The Prota thinks he was so absorbed in that situation that he forgot no one else can see the interface. He says that actually his system received an update with Lan Bao's help, and he has now reached level D1. The two are impressed. His sister says he really is amazing, and his friend says he reached D1 at an astonishing speed. Wei Yi says that was mostly luck because they will probably face more dangers in the future, and that is why he wants to become stronger as fast as possible. Zhou agrees, saying that in that world, strength matters the most, and he will have to work even harder. Lan Bao says he could perceive that Zhou's emotions are a bit discouraged. The prota begins to wonder whether he ended up discouraging his friend by leveling up so fast and tries to fix the situation. But before he can say anything, the phone starts ringing, startling everyone. He says it is Xiang calling. She asks where he is, and he tells his captain they are on the west side of the nebulous forest and that he just finished his search. She becomes happy, asking whether he is really together with them. Wei Yi says hi to her, and she says that is perfect, and that if they really are done, they must return immediately to Ringstar City because she found some new members and everyone needs to get used to working together. Wei Yi says that unfortunately he needs to take his sister home first, so he will not be able to return with Zhou. Xiao says hi to Xiang. She becomes touched, saying the little girl is truly adorable and that they do not want her to face any danger. So she asks the prota to take her home first and for Zhou to return alone. He becomes irritated, asking the prota how he can abandon him like that. Xiang tells him to stop complaining because the Vanguard's role is crucial for the next mission and she needs him to get familiar with things first, since there is a group of adventurers she knows nearby and he can return with them. She hangs up saying she will send the location because that mission is very important. It will affect the whole group's ranking and also their future income, so she cannot lose that opportunity. She asks if he understood because they will meet in the city. He says yes. The prota tells him not to worry because he will also go as soon as he can. They leave the house and begin saying goodbye. Zhou says he is already heading out and says it is a shame the prota's storage ring does not have a communication function, so they will have to meet in Star City, and the prota agrees. He thinks storage rings with communication functions are very expensive and that he needs to get more money and magic crystals in the future. And also Xiang's group probably needs help, so as soon as he settles things at home, he will have to head to Star City as fast as possible. He looks at his sister saying they also need to go and asks whether she can walk. With a smile on her face, she says it is no problem because she wants to stay close to him all the time. Lan Bao says he detected emotions full of nervousness and restlessness in Xiao and concludes she is physically unwell. He becomes worried, asking whether she is really not okay, and thinks something might have happened. Then he crouches down, holds her leg, and asks her to lift her foot so he can take a look. But she becomes uneasy, saying there is no need because she is fine. When he looks, he notices that she is injured, and, a bit irritated, says he already expected that because she is pushing herself too hard again, asking whether she hurt herself on the thorns along the way since she must have endured that for some time, and questioning why she did not tell him anything. Xiao says he is already working so hard and she did not want to bother him with anything else. He then tells her to get on his back, but she insists she can walk on her own, though he says that will also be part of her training, and that besides that, she is the most important little sister he has. With a blushing, happy face, she climbs on and asks if he is holding her firmly. Once she confirms, he says it is time to leave and starts running at an impressive speed. During the night at the prota's house, Zeki was there with his whole team. One of the members is irritated, saying they still have not returned. Ming also loses his patience, asking how long it has been and shouting for the old man to give a more direct answer about when they would be back. Bang says young people have their own plans and it is not up to him, just an old man, to decide how that will be done, and if they cannot wait any longer, they are free to leave. Ming keeps getting irritated, saying they waited all day and that this was a complete waste of time, asking if the old man is messing with them. Zeki also begins to get annoyed, saying their patience has limits. Suddenly, shouting starts. The people behind say he has finally returned and beg to be spared because they did nothing, but the prota simply knocks them all down and angrily asks why they are in his house. Xiao says it is that stinky gorilla again. Still annoyed, the prota asks Zeki what he is planning this time, but Zeki tells Wei Yi to relax because he is not there to cause trouble. He throws countless magic crystals on the table and says that on the contrary, if the prota helps them achieve their goal, all of that will be his. The leader begins explaining that they are planning to subdue a boss-level magical beast and that by chance they are without an awakened, capable of dealing elemental damage. Even if the prota's level is a bit low, he still barely meets the combat requirements and asks what he thinks of the offer. Lan Bao says Zeki's senses are calm, without fluctuation, so he judges he is speaking the truth. Wei Yi starts analyzing the situation, thinking that apparently the guy really is telling the truth, and besides his grandfather is calm, so he probably already knew about this. Zeki throws a contract among the crystals, saying it is right there. It includes 500 low-quality magic crystals and a 5-year contract for the use of magic crystal energy devices, which means the prota will not need to worry about rent for a long time. Wei Yi asks what the target is because for Zeki to offer terms like those, it cannot be just an ordinary magical beast. Zeki says that question was expected from a smart person and reveals that this time they will subdue the calamity of the forest, the Bloodclaw. Wei Yi is shocked to hear that, thinking that Bloodclaw is the strongest magical beast near the city and that almost all adventure groups that encountered it failed to escape its claws. He remembers a rank B awakened who led a group to subdue it just to show off. But in the end, not even that rank B awakened returned alive. And that monster is a calamity in every sense of the word. Zeki points out that he knows the Prota has heard the rumors about Bloodclaws and says he cannot force him into anything, so he can refuse if he wants. However, he states that Wei Yi must know refusal comes with a price, and at that point, it will not be just a problem between the two of them. His sister becomes worried at those words. Lan Bao says he detected impatient and resolute emotions in Zeki and that he is releasing killing intent. His sister starts hiding behind him, saying she is scared. He thinks that first came the carrot and now the stick. He understands that even being rank D, he still is not strong enough for a direct confrontation. But Zeki is forcing him to help, which shows that the subjugation is urgent and very important, making it the perfect scenario to negotiate a little more. Wei Yi says he agrees to participate but has two conditions. First, he needs 2 storage rings with communication function, one for him and one for his sister. Second, he asks for that contract to be made permanent because if Zeki is taking that partnership seriously, then he must show real sincerity, since if he had other suitable candidates, he would not have gone after him. Ming becomes irritated with the demands and tells the Prota to stop pushing things. Zeki smiles, saying that on the condition that the Prota helps him complete the subjugation, he can grant all of that after it is done. The leader emphasizes that Wei Yi had better have the strength to fulfill his demands, because otherwise he will meet a miserable death. He explains that tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, at the entrance of the Western Nebulous Forest, they need to meet to begin the subjugation, and asks the Prota not to be late because he does not like waiting. After settling everything, Zeki starts leaving. Wei Yi thinks that based on what he knows about Zeki, he made extensive preparations for this subjugation, which means he believes there is a real chance of victory. And even if they lose, he must have some way to retreat. The insecurity and the threat his grandfather and sister face will be resolved, so agreeing was the smartest option. However, he still needs some kind of weapon. The hammer is sturdy, but its offensive capabilities are weak, so a sword-type weapon would be better. His grandfather calls him, saying that if he is really preparing to go, then he should take that with him. Wei Yi is surprised, and the grandfather says that while he was away, he was not just sitting around. He points out that even though the material processing techniques of that world are different, it still took a lot of effort to make that weapon, but fortunately, he did not let that excellent material go to waste, and so it is best for his grandson to make good use of it. He tosses the sword to the Prota and tells him to hold the handle without cutting himself on the blade. Wei Yi quickly unwraps it, saying it truly is beautiful. Lan Bao identifies the weapon, saying it is the Silver Fang Blade, Grade C, a weapon forged from the fang of a Silver Fang Wolf King using modern technology. He feels the newly forged blade pulsing in his hands, a masterful technique that pushed the metal beyond its limits, giving it extreme sharpness, hard enough to create wounds that are difficult to heal and still cause continuous bleeding. As soon as he accepts the new equipment, confidence simply overflows as if he has finally completed everything he was missing. Meanwhile, at the guild headquarters, everyone was already gathered and restless. Ming complains that it is far too late and still no sign. Another member comments that the vanguard team sent to the forest has not returned. It is taking too long, and even the other guy disappeared. Ming asks the leader if he thinks the boy tricked them, but Zeki only asks him to be patient. Another person questions why they need to wait specifically for that boy, and asks whether they really think they would not be able to handle a simple magical beast. He boasts that he reached rank C and is now much stronger, saying not even that Yun Tianming would be so superior to him, let alone a beginner whose rank no one knows. That man is Wang Hui, human, with strength 300 plus 276, vitality 112, spirit 36, elemental power 108, 0 additional points, speed 92 and luck 152 plus 96, with lightning arrow level 2, innate critical hit and innate imprisonment, currently at rank C2. A woman comments that he is as arrogant as ever and reminds him that with such insignificant abilities, no matter how much he grows, he will never compare to the leader. She asks if he really thinks he can be on the same level as someone whose judgment has never failed, and states that if the leader said someone is necessary, then that person has value. This is Shei Bai Lily, human, strength 33, vitality 186 plus 216, spirit 159 plus 36, elemental power 121 plus 60, speed 54 and luck 63 with healing level 3, cloud mist level 1, innate harden and innate purify. Hui jumps down from the truck saying he knows what she is thinking, but Lily immediately cuts him off saying it is better for him to shut his mouth or she will tear him apart. He gives up instantly. Ming sees someone approaching and asks whether it is the boy. Zeki observes in silence, convinced he has finally arrived. On the way, he takes the chance to finish his daily training while Lan Bao marks 100 kilogram weight completed, 20-kilometer run completed, 200 sit-ups completed, 200 push-ups completed, and announces to the master that the day's goals have been fulfilled. As soon as he arrives, Ming runs at him shouting, asking why he took so long and how he is not ashamed to keep so many people waiting. The prota simply reminds him that the agreement was for 8 o'clock, and it is exactly 8 now, so if they arrived earlier, that is their problem. Wei Yi tells Zeki that he did not imagine the agreement included a rule against morning training. Hui steps into the conversation, drawing attention, asking if he is Zhong Tianyu's replacement, leaving the prota not knowing who that person even is. Hui keeps insisting, provoking Wei Yi for looking fragile, then steps forward, showing off and asking whether the prota can really fight alongside the leader or if he will be killed by a monster even before that, saying it would be a waste of the magic crystals they received. He presses a hand against the prota's chest and offers to take care of the benefits, pretending to be concerned. Lan Bao senses the contempt and states he does not like him. Wei Yi says he is not interested, which irritates Hui, who demands that the brat stop ignoring him. Ming bursts into laughter, saying Hui got shot down. Wei Yi then states that if Hui were truly concerned about someone's safety, he should worry about his own partner because last time, he barely survived a direct confrontation. And for this mission, the least he should do is be more careful. Ming becomes furious and asks what Wei Yi thinks he is saying, insisting that last time he only let the proto win and questioning whether he really believes he could not defeat him. Hui starts laughing at him, saying Ming is truly pathetic. Wei Yi keeps observing the area and comments that now he understands the situation of that group better, since he never imagined they had someone with such a rare healing ability. Lily notices the prota's stare and asks why he is looking at her, while Lan Bao says he identified a cautious posture in her. Wei Yi concludes that Zeki prepared many things in advance. The leader interrupts everyone, saying that enough talking as they have just received a message from the front line, and all arrangements have already been activated. He states that this time they are fully prepared, reminding them they waited nearly 3 years for that battle and asking no one to forget the original purpose of the Brown Bear Guild, vowing that they will not rest until Bloodclaw is destroyed. The warriors start shouting the name of the guild, surprising the prota upon seeing they truly built a culture of unity. He thinks that he truly hopes the subjugation mission will go smoothly. When everyone was already leaving, Zixi appears saying he never expected to see that child there and that apparently things will get interesting. Meanwhile, in the forest, some were fighting wolves and shouted in relief when the main force arrived. Monsters were chasing the group, and Ming comments that he did not expect to be attacked right on the way to the meeting point. Among the monsters, there was a mimic monkey between D3 and D4 and fang wolves between E4 and E6. He shouts for everyone to move forward and gather behind him. Cornered, they fought as best they could when one of the monkeys leaped from above but was destroyed by an arrow. Hui tells Ming he now owes him one, and Ming snaps back, asking who asked for help since that monster would not even break his defense. Lily starts healing everyone and asks whether Hui truly has enough elemental power to waste fire on such weak monsters. Lan Bao watches her healing and says he is trying to learn the ability. The prota analyzes the situation and notices that currently there are 3 main classifications, D1, C1, and B, while the advanced team has 24 E levels. Even improvised, their coordination is not bad, and this is an excellent chance to learn new techniques. Lan Bao notifies that he has learned the pure ability, stored in the ability star map, and the prota asks him to open the map. His consciousness is pulled into the space, where he realizes that when the total number of abilities exceeds 3, the star map is fully unlocked. There, all abilities are recorded and can be swapped at any time, showing that elemental composition truly follows the pattern of constellations. He notices there are still 2 unavailable abilities due to missing requirements, Mana Derivation and Mana Bullet, and wonders whether they are techniques born from the fusion with Forge. Lan Bao explains that swapping abilities consumes a lot of elemental power, about 30 points of the current value, and the prota thinks that makes switching inefficient in combat, even more because elemental power recovers slowly, even with spirit enhancement. He also notices he now has heavy core armor and lightning arrow, but decides to swap out the armor since it is far too inconvenient, replacing it with lightning arrow. Water Light can handle unexpected situations, so he will keep that technique, and he will also keep Silver Light as his main offensive skill for now. He still thinks it is a shame to have only 3 available ability slots for the moment, but decides it will have to be enough. Wei Yi thinks he should leave, but if he really wants to learn Zeki's techniques, he needs to stay quiet, especially because his special status complicates everything. since whenever Lan Bao tries to analyze him, he notices immediately. Ming shouts at the Prota, asking if he does not see everyone fighting and why he is standing still. And the Prota replies that their agreement involved only helping with the hunt for Bloodclaw. Any other monster is the group's responsibility. Ming becomes even more irritated, but Zeki intervenes, telling them to save their energy and end the argument since they are close to the area where the bait was left and need to focus. Wei Yi is surprised to see the leader defending him and imagines that Zeki's hatred for that monster must be enormous, thinking it is a good chance to extract information. So he asks why they are judging Bloodclaw and says he should at least know the reason. Zeki releases a crushing killing intent, saying that the creature deserves to die and tells the Prota to stop with that nonsense, reinforcing that his job is to act, not to ask questions that cause problems. Suddenly, a cry for help echoes through the jungle and the leader orders everyone to spread out as he rushes forward. Hidden, the Prota watches in silence and is startled to see the creature appearing before two people. The girl asks why a magical beast of that level would show up at the forest's edge while the man fallen on the ground with an injured leg tells her to run as fast as she can, saying he cannot run but she can still survive. She refuses to leave him, saying she cannot abandon him. And meanwhile, Wei Yi continues analyzing the scene, concluding that the adventurer group was practically wiped out and that the monster before them really is Bloodclaw. The leader loses patience, asking if that is a group that wandered in by mistake, complaining that of all possible moments they had to show up right now. He orders everyone to maintain their positions and wait for Bloodclaw to kill those people, stating that as soon as the monster lowers its guard, they will attack. The Prota disagrees, saying they were the ones who lured the creature there and that they should save those people. Zeki reacts, asking if Wei Yi is joking with him, since the perfect chance to subdue Bloodclaw is right before them, and questions why they should waste strength on two complete strangers. Wei comments that both will die anyway and asks who wants to bet some magic crystals on how long they will last. One bets 20 seconds, another bets 12. Ming adds that the two are far too weak and that if they could at least deal some damage to the monster, their deaths would have some value. Wei Yi becomes outraged at their indifference, realizing that mocking and even betting on the deaths of innocent people reveals the true face of that society, where status and personal gain are everything and that there is no point in expecting them to act. But if he does not act now, those people will die. The girl keeps fighting to protect them both, while the injured man shouts that he's not afraid of the creature. The Prota starts getting irritated, thinking he cannot just watch innocents die in front of him. He activates Universal Analysis and realizes that Zeki prepared many traps in the area to deal with Bloodclaw, and that even if he attacks now, the group can react quickly. The problem is the distance, which is far too great for the Silver Fang blade to reach. And he also is not fast enough. Lan Bao tells the master he could use that. A white stone Vipa resistant, long and versatile. Upon examining it, he gains 10 experience points and cuts it. Wei Yi becomes excited, understanding that Lan Bao reminded him most projectiles can activate his abilities. The leader becomes alarmed upon noticing the Prota is moving. Wei Yi begins infusing his elemental power into the improvised spear, thinking that even if that world is distorted and broken, he cannot stay still. Then Lan Bao announces, Lightning Arrows, a lightning element ability that accelerates the projectile through electrical energy, greatly increasing its speed and moderately increasing physical attack. The damage depends on the material used and the strength attribute, plus the elemental power attribute that adds elemental damage, and any straight-line projectile can be used, though the cost is high. Wei Yi shouts that he will use Lightning Arrow and the spear. Zeki yells angrily, but Ming is shocked to recognize that ability. Zeki realizes the attack landed and thinks that maybe there is still hope since the strike was fast as lightning, although no one knows the outcome. Seeing the impact, the two adventurers become confused, asking what is happening. Bloodclaw becomes enraged after being hit, and Wei Yi becomes worried upon realizing that the creature's defense is so high that his abilities barely have any effect. Zeki raises the poisoned sword and shouts at the Prota, asking what he did, how he dares act on his own without any order, and whether he is trying to die, while Lan Bao tells him to be careful. Wei Yi is surprised by the opponent's speed but does not back down, and says that in that emergency he had no choice because he could not simply ignore things as they did, asking if Zeki truly wants to end up with one less member in a situation like that. Ming warns that the creature has already noticed all of them and is charging at full force. The leader grumbles that he will deal with the Prota later, and orders everyone to follow the plan while the monster keeps advancing, tearing through barriers and traps as if they were nothing, forcing them to use the containment nets. Wei Yi thinks that if the Silver Fang Wolf King's attributes were balanced, then the creature ahead of them is probably extremely specialized. Lan Bao analyzes the monster and displays the stats: name Bloodclaws, race boss, class C8, strength 548, vitality 585, spirit 24, luck 16, speed 431, elemental power 40. Skills: Smash Max level, Rend Max level, Intimidate Max level, Brutal Strike level 3, Blood Frenzy level 3. Special status: Breakable Hardened Armor with golden patterns providing 40% additional defense, removed only after accumulating a large amount of damage. The containment nets fall over the monster but have no effect. People despair when they realize that not even the special equipment works and therefore they must retreat. The creature attacks, destroying everything ahead and flinging adventurers around as if they were nothing. Lily orders Ming to step forward and hold the monster for a moment while she heals the injured. He activates the heavy core, faces the bear, and starts cursing it without hesitation. The monster's blow is so intense that it shatters the ground around them, but Ming's armor endures, and he smirks, saying it will not be that easy, triggering the heavy core's 3-second stun effect and immobilizing the bear. Zeki orders Hui to aim at the abdomen and fire. As soon as the arrow hits, the leader charges in with everything he has, delivering 22 consecutive strikes to activate true damage. His weapon, called Stinger, has D+ attack power and, upon landing 22 hits in a row, applies an additional instance of true damage. Consumed by vengeance, the leader stares at Bloodclaw and says now it will taste the 3 years of fury he accumulated. Wei Yi is impressed by the sequence of attacks and concludes that Zeki really is rank B or higher, because his combat power is as deep as they say. Even so, despite the small advantage, they still have not secured the situation since Bloodclaw, known as the Calamity of the Forest, would never be easy to face. He also notices another problem. The wounded awakened from earlier cannot move and could be caught in the crossfire. Wei Yi asks Lily if she can heal him, but she becomes annoyed, asking whether that brat is trying to make friends and how he dares give her orders, saying he has not noticed it is already overcrowded there. Lan Bao identifies impatience in her tone, and the Prota thinks pressing further is pointless, thinking about switching to healing. However, even while complaining, Lily says it is very annoying, asks if they really think being support is easy, and decides to heal the injured man. She adds that the Prota should be useful to the leader, so he needs to go immediately while she takes care of those 2 idiots. Lan Bao comments that he sensed kindness and exhaustion in her, and judges her attitude as bravery, making Wei Yi smile in relief, thinking one cannot judge someone just by appearance. He runs to the cliff and shouts to the injured man and the boy that the battle may get even more brutal, so they must leave immediately. The man asks if he was the one who saved them and promises to repay him if they meet again, while the boy thanks him, calling him their benefactor, and assures they are leaving at once. Wei Yi looks at the fight and decides it is time to fulfill the promise. Zeki keeps fighting with everything he has but steps back, thinking it is not working, because without control it is difficult to activate the combo and normal damage is too low, so they need to break the monster's hardened armor first. He wonders what the Prota is doing. His innate ability warns him of imminent danger when the monster prepares and uses Brutal Smash, destroying all the ground around them, making the leader shout for everyone to retreat immediately. Ming is surprised because he did not know Smash was still charged. The healer warns the injured to be careful, and Hui cannot believe the shockwave spread so widely. Filled with rage, Bloodclaw stares at the group, while the leader, still standing and anxious, thinks that one of the most terrifying things about that monster is the wide area damage, making it nearly impossible for any rank E to fight something like that, and realizes they enraged the creature and perhaps should not have started this fight so early. While he thinks that, Wei Yi runs past him, saying it is time to take control. The leader yells for him to wait because the monster is enraged and attacking it now is suicide, but Wei Yi keeps advancing, saying he will honor the promise he made. Lan Bao begins real-time attack prediction to counter Bloodclaw and quickly starts indicating from where each strike is coming. Hui is shocked to see that the Prota's speed is enough to dodge the creature's attacks, while another person wonders how that boy dares face such a terrifying monster head-on. Zeki watches everything, thinking that even if the others cannot see clearly, from his perspective it is crystal clear that although Wei Yi increased his speed with some innate ability, he is still extremely slower than Bloodclaw and has no way to escape its attacks. The monster charges again and causes more destruction around them, leaving Hui confused, saying that for a moment he thought the Prota had some special ability, while others ask if he really threw his life away, and the healer tries to understand whether that boy truly died. The leader thinks it is over, believing he judged wrong and found an idiot, wondering if they will really lose everything, but the monster remains still staring at the same spot because a shield was protecting the Prota. He shouts to the leader that he already said he would take responsibility for the promise he made. The Waterlight Phantom has been deactivated and Silvered has been activated, and he begins gathering his elemental power. People are amazed, saying he did not die and cannot understand how he managed to climb on top of the bear, while the Prota states that it is time to extinguish the furious temperament the monster radiates. With all the accumulated elemental power, he attacks with everything he has, making the monster let out a scream of pain. The system notifies that the hardening was broken, the life was broken, the active effect Silver Fang Blade applied bleeding, and the active effect Silver Fang Blade afflicted the wound with the hard-to-heal state. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content. Thank you.